Chapter 48-49. That's right. No matter how high his vision is, no matter how strong his background is, at the end of the day strength is king. Plus, he is a super alchemist himself. To him, this item is the same as increasing his strength. Unless his brain is flooded with water, there is no way he wouldn't be tempted. As long as he is tempted, everything else will be easy. Sukushing said confidently. Brat, you have to make careful arrangements. I've invested so much. If I can't create a few powerful enemies for him in the end, I won't forgive you. Baozhua said with a guilty conscience. The only reason he took out this item was to kill someone with a borrowed knife. If he couldn't defeat Lin Yi in the end and Lin Yi won it, then no matter how high the price was, Baozhua would be depressed to the point of vomiting blood. After all, this item was almost as rare as the Xian Thunder Dan. Usually, no matter how many spiritual jades he spent, he might not be able to buy it. Don't worry. I've already arranged everything. This enemy is definitely powerful enough. Even if Lin Yi provokes him, he won't be able to walk away unscathed. I can guarantee that he will definitely fight. That person is not a reasonable person, hee. Sukushing smiled mysteriously. Good. Seeing his expression, Baozhua was instantly filled with confidence. Because every time this guy revealed this expression, he had never failed. This time was no exception. Next is the 8th item, the yuan-raising demonic golden grass. The white-bearded old man hadn't even finished speaking when the entire audience was in an uproar. The response was much more enthusiastic than all the previous auction items combined. And this time, it was as Baozhua and Sukushing had expected. Lin Yi, who had been indifferent all this while, had his eyes lit up. Lin Yi was an alchemist himself. He was no stranger to the yuan-raising demonic golden grass. This was because this was the main ingredient for the vitality-raising Dan. Its rarity was comparable to the thunder mystic rot tan. Although the spiritual Dan was only effective for original infant stage cultivators, it was still a 7th realm Dan. Its effects were very simple. If an original infant stage cultivator were to take one, they would be able to level up by 1 level. To an original infant stage cultivator, this was undoubtedly a holy pill that they yearned for even in their dreams. Furthermore, it was an enhanced version of the condensing infant pill. One has to know that the condensing infant pill only had miraculous effects when forming the original infant stage. Once one entered the original infant stage, although it was possible to continue using it as an experience pill, the effects would be extremely limited. It could even be said to be sloppy and a waste of resources. If one wanted to rely on the golden nascent gathering pill to level up, it would be impossible to do so without at least 8 to 10 pills. However, the vitality enhancing pill was different. Regardless of whether one was an early nascent soul realm expert or a late nascent soul realm expert, as long as one pill was used, one would be able to directly level up. However, it could not replace the effect of the gathering nascent soul golden pill that could break the barrier. If the golden core perfection dared to take the yuan cultivating pill, it would basically result in an instant death. Just as Baozhua and Sukushing had speculated, there was no way Lin Yi wouldn't be able to do nothing about this. In reality, as long as one's capability wasn't at the original level, any original leveled cultivator, regardless of their background, wouldn't be able to remain unmoved. After the evaluation, this golden nascent soul golden grass can be divided into 5 portions. In other words, it can only be used to brew 5 vitality enhancing pills. The starting price is 1 million spiritual jades, the bearded elder announced. 2 million. Lin Yi opened his mouth and immediately doubled the starting price. 2 million spiritual jades to buy 1 golden nascent soul golden grass was a little high. After all, this wasn't a ready-made vitality-enhancing pill. However, in Lin Yi's hands, this thing was no different from a vitality-enhancing pill. Especially at a time like this, it didn't matter how many spiritual jades he spent. After all, millions of spiritual jades were nothing more than numbers to Lin Yi. Now that he had the opportunity to buy the golden nascent soul golden grass, he was already making a profit. At this moment, Xinyan suddenly made a sound of surprise. She whispered to Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. I think I've seen this golden nascent soul golden grass before? Ha! Lin Yi paused. Right, I remember now. Isn't this Wuliang Bao's? Huang Xiaotao slapped her forehead and remembered as well. Wuliang Bao. Lin Yi paused again. Who would come up with a name like that? Seeing Lin Yi's confused expression, Xingyan smiled and explained. Wuliang Bao is our nickname. His real name is Bao Zuoliang, the only son of Morningstar City's city lord Bao Farah. As she spoke, she pointed at a table in the distance. It was where Bao Zuoliang and Su Kushing were sitting. Lin Yi glanced at them, and his heart jumped. He'd noticed that these two had been staring at him since the beginning, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, he was someone who stood at the heart of the struggle. There were many people who paid attention to him, but not as much as these two. Lin Yi couldn't help but speculate that these two had ulterior motives, and weren't just here to watch the show. Speaking of which, how do you know this golden nascent soul golden grass belongs to him? Lin Yi asked curiously. Not revealing one's wealth was the most basic rule in the cultivation world. No matter who obtained the golden nascent soul golden grass, they wouldn't go around announcing it to the world. Being a spoiled brat didn't mean you were stupid, unless there was something wrong with your head. That's because Bao Wuliang took it out for us to see. He even pretended to give it to big sister Xingyan. Even an idiot could see through his dirty thoughts. Guess what big sister Xingyan said in the end? Huang Xiaotao kept them in suspense. What did she say? Lin Yi's interest was immediately piqued. He looked at the blushing Wang Xingyan with a faint smile. This girl had a gentle and kind personality. He really couldn't guess how she would react to a spoiled brat like Bao Zuoliang. Big sister Xingyan only said 3 words at that time. But that toad Bao Wuliang was so scared that he turned around and ran away. Because she said. Huang Xiaotao kept everyone in suspense before revealing the answer. Deaf nanny. Lin Yi smiled. This deaf nanny definitely couldn't hear it. He didn't expect Bao Zuoliang to be so cowardly. However, he really had to find an opportunity to thank the deaf nanny. If it weren't for her, not only Wang Xingyan, but Huang Xiaotao would also be in trouble. The East Continent College had no lack of spoiled brats. It would be strange if they didn't come to bother the two girls. As the 3 of them spoke, there were already several people bidding. The price of the golden nascent soul golden grass quickly rose to 2,700,000 spirit jades. Chapter 4850. After all, to those cultivators who were at the peak of the advanced stage of the original level, obtaining an essence-raising Dan at this time was like gaining a precious ticket to becoming a tycoon. 3 million. Lin Yi raised the price again without hesitation, and all the competitors' eyelids twitched. Compared to the others, they were all rich, but in front of Lin Yi, they were all fake rich. Only he was a true tycoon. 3,050,000. An old man with snow-white hair clenched his teeth and said. Lin Yi glanced at him. This was a cultivator at the peak of the advanced stage of the original level. It seemed like he was making a last stand for himself. Though cultivators lived a long life, getting too old would make them lose their drive, and it would be hard for them to make any more breakthroughs. If he couldn't break through to the Xian realm this time, he would probably never be able to do so again. Thinking about it made one sigh. However, Lin Yi would not pity an outsider who had nothing to do with him. He had to get this chi-raising golden grass today. Without blinking he said, 3,200,000. The white-haired old man's expression froze as he looked at the calm Lin Yi. His body trembled as he tried to open his mouth, but he couldn't make a sound. He could only sit back down with a desolate look on his face. 3,500,000 was his limit. He already had to borrow money from others. He could not afford to pay more than that, let alone the fact that there was no way he could win against the wealthy Lin Yi. Even if he managed to get his hands on the chi-raising Dan, it would be useless. Finding someone to help him with the essence-raising Dan would require a lot of spiritual jades. 3,300,000. Just as the white-haired old man retreated in fear, a young woman immediately took over from the other side. This was a second-generation cultivator of the academy. She was much more confident than the white-haired old man. And she was also determined to get the yuan-raising demon golden grass. Bao Zuoliang and Su Kushing were overjoyed to see this scene. They'd released the chi-raising golden grass just for this. As long as Lin Yi and these people didn't give way to each other, they'd end up fighting each other sooner or later. They'd be enemies even if they didn't want to. But all of this was secondary. The one Su Kexing made for Lin Yi hasn't even spoken yet. Remember, that person was even more desperate for the qi-raising golden grass than Lin Yi. 3,800,000. Lin Yi looked at the woman, and the number that came out of her mouth shocked everyone. This wasn't a ready-made qi-raising pill. It was just a stalk of qi-raising golden grass. Was there a need to ask for such a high price? What could they do? Rich people were always stubborn. 3,900,000. The young woman looked at Lin Yi angrily and hesitated for a while before saying, 4,200,000. Lin Yi still had a calm expression and did not even look at her. With his wealth, he was destined to be invincible in this kind of situation where there were no big shots. Even the most powerful second-generation cultivators were like floating clouds in front of him. In the past, they were the ones smashing others to death with spirit jades. Now it was time for them to experience what it felt like to be smashed alive with spirit jades. As expected, the young woman choked. Her face turned green and white as she glared at Lin Yi. After hesitating for a long time, she finally sat back down. Although it was not that her family could not take out so many spirit jades, with the price of the Dan of Raising Dan, even if she got the qi-raising golden grass, she would definitely be scolded by the elders in her family. All of her spirit jades were provided by her family. She did not dare to squander them like Lin Yi. Looks like no one is going to compete with you now. Wang Xingyan smiled. After all, she had followed the divine nun of the Eastern Sea. Her knowledge was far greater than that of regular students. 4,200,000 spirit jades was enough to buy a ready-made Dan of Raising Dan. Aside from people like Lin Yi, who had too much spirit jades to spend, no one else was willing to compete with him. I don't think it will be that simple. Lin Yi shook his head. He had been paying attention to one person throughout the entire auction. It was not Bao Zuoliang, who Wang Xingyan and Huang Xiaotao had mentioned, but the red-haired old man who sat boldly in the center of the hall. Lin Yi had originally thought that Qing Danzi, his cheap disciple, was strange enough. He did not think that he would run into someone even stranger today. Not only was his hair and beard fiery red, but even his face was abnormally red. This was no longer the Heaven Island version of Lord Guan Yu. He was like the Lord of the Fire God, who had descended into the mortal world. Of course, Lin Yi did not pay attention to this red-haired old man purely because of his strange appearance. More importantly, this person's presence and strength were the best in the entire hall. Even if he sat there silently, he still had a strong sense of existence. This was because this was a true mountain-opening giant, and he had never held back his aura. Under normal circumstances, any mountain-opening stage tycoon should be like Ling Yuanqing and the other big shots of the academy, and take the initiative to avoid arousing suspicion. After all, at their level, it was very difficult for a personal auction to have anything good that could catch their eye. Moreover, as a tycoon, he should have the airs of a tycoon. If he casually came out to compete with the younger generation, there would be no prestige left. But Lin Yi did not know what this red-haired old man was planning by appearing here. He had never opened his mouth before, but one thing was for sure. Since he was here, he must have an ulterior motive. Soon, the red-haired old man noticed that Lin Yi was glancing at him intentionally or unintentionally. He immediately turned his head and looked back. There was no special expression on his face, but the terrifying aura from the giant of the mountain opening period still made Lin Yi's heart jump. Lin Yi couldn't help but think to himself, was this guy really the Lord of the Fire God? Being stared at by him like that made me feel like I was about to burn up. That person is called Lu Dachang. He's not one of the higher-ups in the academy, but a guest elder that the city Lord Bofara invited with a high price. I heard that he's a mountain-opening master, and his position in the city lord's manor is only slightly lower than Bofara's. He's one of the top 3 giants. Xingyan reported quietly. A mountain-opening giant from the city lord's manor? Then what's he doing here? The bad feeling in Lin Yi's heart grew stronger. I don't know. Xingyan and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and shook their heads. They had only heard of this person, and only heard some rumors. They didn't know much about him. The whole place was silent. The people who coveted the yuan-raising demon golden grass were all frightened by Lin Yi. The price had already been raised to 2 million. Everyone wanted to bid, but they didn't have the strength to do so. They could only watch helplessly. At this moment, Lin Yi's bad feeling became reality. Lu Dachong suddenly spoke, 5 million. The others didn't have enough capital, but he was a mountain opening master. This amount of spirit jade was more than enough. Chapter 4851. 6 million. Lu Dachong seemed to be a rich man. If an opening stage giant like him couldn't compete with a junior, he would be laughed at to death. Even so, some people noticed that this guest giant's mouth twitched unnaturally. The whole place was silent. At this time, no one could jump out to mess things up. The yuan-raising demon golden grass could only fall into the hands of two people. It was either Lin Yi or Lu Dachong. The others could only watch from afar. Not bad, not bad. Messing with Lu Dachong, this old bastard. This Lin is dead for sure. Bao Zuoyang almost laughed out loud. Although Lu Dachong was on the same side as his father, he didn't have any respect for him, the young city lord. After the quarrel with his son last time, this old bastard even wanted to teach him a lesson. Luckily Bao Farah saved him in time, or else he would have suffered greatly. Bao Zuoyang didn't like Lu Dachong, but he was an opening stage giant after all. Even his father had to bow down to him. No matter how unhappy he was, he could only pinch his nose. But now, he made this old bastard deal with Lin Yi. No matter who was unlucky, he would be very happy. This was simply a stroke of genius. Since I have to borrow someone's knife to kill, I naturally have to borrow the sharpest knife. No matter how I think about it, I can't find a knife sharper than Lu Dachong in Qinxing City. Su Kexing couldn't help but be proud of himself. To deal with someone with a background like Lin Yi, ordinary opponents were not enough. Profound Ascension stage was far from enough. At the very least, they had to be opening stage giants. But opening stage giants were not so easy to use. Only a fiery giant like Lu Dachong could be used. Right, how did you determine that this old bastard would take the bait? Bao Zuoyang suddenly asked. Although the yuan-raising demon golden grass was rare and useful, to an opening stage giant like Lu Dachong, what use could it have? Hee young Master Bao. Did you forget Lu Xiaozhong who argued with us last time? He is now at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, and has long announced that he wants to participate in the path of a magnate. As long as the news of the essence-raising devil golden grass is spread, with the old bastard's protective personality, it would be strange if he could endure it. Su Kexing said with a mischievous smile. The Lu Xiaozhong he mentioned was Lu Dachong's son. So that's how it is. No wonder you have nothing to do in front of Lu Xiaozhong 2 days ago. It turns out that you deliberately leaked information to him. It's so bad, but I like it. Bao Zuoyang laughed. Young Master Bao, I didn't just leak the information to him. I also purposely emphasized Lin Yi's wealth. In short, he can't compete with Lin Yi with just the amount of spirit jades he has. Unless he gets his father to step in. And he can't do it according to the rules, hee. Su Kexing smirked as he took credit for himself. Well done, well done. Let's wait and watch the show. Bao Zuoyang was very satisfied with his right-hand man. The reason why they called Lu Dachong an old bastard was because he didn't do things according to the rules. Moreover, he was an unscrupulous person. It was impossible for him to follow the rules and admit defeat like the others. As the two were talking, Lin Yi had already completely gone against the mountain opening magnate, Lu Dachong. According to their expectations, 7 million. 5 million. Lu Dachong still didn't plan to give in. But everyone could see that he couldn't hold on any longer. For a essence-raising devil golden grass to such an exaggerated price, everyone felt like they were dreaming. One had to know that even the rarest grade 7 medicinal pellet, the profound thunder pellet, was only worth this much at most. A normal essence-augmenting pellet would be sold for more than 5 million, and this was just a stock of essence-augmenting demon golden grass. At this moment, there was only one thought in everyone's mind. These two people are crazy. 8 million. Lin Yi didn't care if the opponent was in mountain opening magnate or not. Since it was an auction, Whoever had more spiritual jades would be awesome. No matter how strong he was, he could only hold it in. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Dachong couldn't help but choke. It was true that he was a mountain opening magnate, but he was only a guest expert of the city lord's mansion. He wasn't a leader like the city lord. How could he have so many spiritual jades to squander? However, those who knew a little wouldn't think that he would let it go just like that. As expected, Lu Dachong's originally ferocious and powerful aura was unleashed. He stared at Lin Yi fiercely and scolded, "Motherfucker! Who is so blind to oppose Grandpa Lu? Are you looking for death? I'll leave my words here today. This essence-raising devil golden grass is mine. Whoever dares to obstruct me, don't blame Grandpa Lu for turning hostile." When Lin Yi heard this, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. To be honest, competing with a mountain-opening magnate was already very stressful. He didn't expect it to be such a shameless old bastard. No wonder he had a very bad premonition from the start. This time, his premonition came true. Even if he was richer than the opponent didn't play by the rules and directly used force. What could he do? In front of absolute strength, all schemes were a joke. Similarly, no matter how many spiritual jades he had, it was just a joke. I heard from Master that he is as boorish as his name. He is famous for being rude and unreasonable. Also, he is only a guest of the city lord's mansion. He doesn't care about the rules. Even if he breaks the rules occasionally, City Lord Bao and Dean Ling can't do anything about it. We have to be careful. Wang Xingyan pulled on Lin Yi's sleeve and reminded him softly. Lin Yi nodded without batting an eyelid. He had a headache looking at this guest with red hair. If the other party was a mountain opening stage expert from outside, he might not dare to be so unbridled in Morningstar City's territory. However, he was a guest here, and there was no way he could argue with him. But no matter what, Lin Yi wouldn't give up so easily. He immediately retorted, "I can understand that you want the yuan-raising devil golden grass, but this is an auction. You have to follow the rules of the auction. If you can't afford to play, then don't play. Do you really want to destroy the fairness of the auction?" When Lin Yi said this, the crowd was in an uproar. They all knew that Lin Yi's background was unfathomable, but they didn't expect him to be so daring. He dared to go against a mountain opening magnate in front of so many people. What they didn't know was that Lin Yi's courage was trained. He was able to escape from the West Mountain Old Master when he was only at the Golden Core stage. Now that he was at the late nascent soul stage and had all sorts of statuses protecting him, he really didn't have to be afraid of this mountain opening magnate. Chapter 4852. Don't talk about useless stuff. I'm telling you, I don't understand a single thing you're saying. Lu Dachong didn't have the demeanor of a big shot at all. Acting shamelessly was a common occurrence, or else there wouldn't be so many people secretly calling him an old bastard. He curled his lips and said, My son needs this grass to refine pills. Just tell me if you're going to let it go or not." Everyone shook their heads, speechless. What was shamelessly? This was shamelessly right in front of you, leaving you with no way to retaliate at all. The worst part was that this old bastard was a mountain opening stage powerhouse. Other than the other mountain opening stage powerhouses, the others didn't even have the right to stand up and talk to him. His fist was the biggest here, so naturally, only he had the final say. Wang Xingyan and Huang Xiaotao frowned and looked at each other. Both of them were thinking of the same thing. Should they sneak out and ask their master to come and save the day? Although the divine nun of the Eastern Sea didn't have much control over this old bastard, she was still a mountain opening stage powerhouse after all. At the very least, he wouldn't dare act shamelessly like this. His tone right now was simply infuriating. "So what if I'm bullying you? Do you dare hit me, weakling?" If it were anyone else, they would most likely admit defeat. But the two girls knew very well the pride in Lin Yi's bones. He definitely wouldn't lower his head so easily. It was fine if it was just a verbal fight, but if they really started fighting, he would be at a great disadvantage. Unexpectedly, under the two girls' worried gazes, Lin Yi was the one who laughed instead. He looked at Lu Dachong calmly and said, "Forgive me for asking, but if you buy the yuan-raising demon golden grass, who are you going to find to refine pills with?" "Nonsense. Of course I'm going to find Qing Danzi. Who else can I find? Lu Dachang curled his lips without hesitation. The yuan-raising pill was a 7th-rank pill after all. Regular alchemists wouldn't be able to refine it at all. The only one who could do so in Morningstar City was Qing Danzi. Oh, that's my disciple. I'll go back and tell him not to accept your job. Just wait and watch. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Everyone was instantly amused. Just now, when they saw Lu Dachang making things difficult, they thought that Lin Yi was about to be unlucky. But now that they thought about it, Lin Yi's disciple was already on equal footing with Lu Dachang. It was hard to say who would have the best laugh in this conflict. Ha! Lu Dachang couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He paused for a moment before sizing up Lin Yi again. Lin Yi could be said to be a household name in Morningstar City. Even if he hadn't seen him before, he would have heard of him. He quickly asked, "You're that Lin Yi?" "That's right. Do you still want to rob me like this?" Lin Yi looked at him with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. His path to becoming a major figure was right around the corner. If he couldn't refine the yuan-raising demon golden grass into yuan-raising pills as soon as possible after buying it, its effects would definitely be greatly reduced. In particular, this visiting chamberlain had to act shamelessly in front of everyone to obtain the yuan-raising demon golden grass. He had to consider this carefully. For the first time, Lu Dachang showed an expression of hesitation and difficulty. Although he was a fool, he wasn't completely stupid. With Lin Yi's identity, even if he was a major figure in the mountain establishment stage, there was nothing he could do about it. There was a limit to acting shamelessly. It was fine if he only wanted to steal the yuan-raising demon golden grass. But if he dared to make a move against Lin Yi, not to mention the attitude of the city lord, the academy would definitely not be able to get away with it. Qing Danzi, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, and even Ling Yuanqing would have to stand against him because of this. That would not be fun. However, he also had to get the yuan-raising demon golden grass for his son. Right now was the most critical period for Lu Xiaozhong's rise. If he missed this opportunity, it would be very difficult for him to break through to profound immortal in the future. This kind of thing could not be delayed. Lu Dachang couldn't help but be in a dilemma. He looked at the yuan-raising demon golden grass on the stage, then looked at the calm and composed Lin Yi, not knowing what to do. How about this? I don't want the yuan-raising demon golden grass anymore. I'll just give it to you. Lin Yi suddenly said. Not only was Lu Dachang dumbfounded, but everyone else was also dumbfounded. He just had the upper hand. Why did he give it away in the blink of an eye? Could it be that this Lin Yi was afraid of the old bastard's revenge? Really? Lu Dachang looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. Of course. Not only can I give you the yuan-raising demon golden grass, I can also promise to personally refine it for you. As long as you bring this yuan-raising demon golden grass to me, I'll guarantee you an energy-raising pill. Lin Yi smiled. Ah, that's great. Thank you so much. Lu Dachang's expression instantly changed. If his face was too red, his change speed would be like a chameleon's. His attitude immediately changed 180 degrees. Master Lin, you really are a great person. I, little Lu, admire you so much. Thank you so much. Then Master Lin, I'll come find you in a bit. He really wasn't stupid at all. Lin Yi was the legendary Absolute Dan. Finding him to refine pills was much more reliable than finding Qing Danzi. Otherwise, why would Qing Danzi be his disciple? Although this yuan-raising demon golden grass was enough for 5 sets of materials, that was only in theory. In reality, it didn't count at all. If he went to find Qing Danzi, if he was lucky, he might be able to refine 2 pills. If he was unlucky, he might not even get one. That was too risky. But Lin Yi was different. Absolute Dan meant that the yuan-raising demon golden grass was in his hands. At that time, he would definitely be able to refine 5 energy-raising pills. Although Lin Yi only gave him 1, it was enough for him. After all, his son was only 1 level away from the original soul stage. More would be useless. On one hand, he might be wasting his money, but on the other, he would definitely get 1. Even an idiot would know what to choose. And Lu Dachang wasn't an idiot. Lu Dachang ran over to Lin Yi's side, trying to curry favor with him. Everyone present, including Lin Yi, was completely dumbfounded. He'd just been calling him Grandpa Lu. But the moment he said he'd refine pills for him, he turned into Little Lu. Did he even have the moral integrity of a founding stage giant? Bao Zuoyang and Su Kexing hid in a corner and looked at each other, too shocked to speak for a long while. They'd meticulously planned out such a good plan, and Lin Yi had just said a few words, and he'd just ruined it all? As for Lin Yi, he couldn't help but smile at Xingyan and Huang Xiaotao. Those who could become founding stage giants really weren't easy to deal with. This Lu Dachang's IQ wasn't low at all, and his vulgarity was just an act. To put it bluntly, it was just a cover for him to take advantage of others. Chapter 4853. Lin Yi and Lu Dachang settled the rules in front of everyone. The white-bearded elder on the stage finally heaved a sigh of relief. Even if he was the auction host invited by the academy, he was helpless against an unreasonable scoundrel like Lu Dachang. If Lu Dachang really snatched the yuan-raising demon golden grass away, it would really be a pain in the ass. Fortunately, this young man was experienced enough to settle Lu Dachang with a few simple words. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The white-bearded elder sighed in his heart as he carefully asked Lu Dachang. Then this yuan-raising demon golden grass belongs to you? The price just now is 8 million spirit jades. Strictly speaking, this method still put him in a difficult position. After all, if the two of them did this, then what was the point of him being the auction host? But there was no other way. This was the best solution. This was much better than Lu Dachang snatching it away. Damn it, this brat escaped this calamity. Bao Zuoyang and Su Kexing looked at each other speechlessly. The only thing that could comfort them was 8 million spirit jades. This price had already far exceeded the yuan-raising demon golden grass itself. Although they didn't manage to scam Lin Yi, they still made a huge profit, and the result was not bad. In the end, Lu Dachang's next words made their hearts tremble. This old bastard glared at them and suppressed them with the aura of a bastard. Yes, your grandma. Master Lin backed out, so we have to bid again. What happened before doesn't count. Don't try to bluff your Grandpa Lu. The white-bearded elder almost spat blood on his face. He had seen many scoundrels, but this was the first time he had seen a scoundrel to this extent. How could there be such a thing in the world? What? You have an opinion? Lu Dachang glared at him with an unfriendly expression. After all, he was an opening stage giant. This aura was really not something an ordinary person could withstand. We have to first ask the seller for his opinion. The white-bearded elder hesitated for a moment before saying, under normal circumstances, of course they couldn't do this. Otherwise, a good auction ceremony would become a big joke. But he was, after all, an auction host that was temporarily invited. He wasn't stupid enough to offend an opening stage giant for a temporary job. Grandpa Lu will kill whoever dares to refuse. Lu Dachang fearlessly threatened the entire crowd, then squinted his eyes and asked, Stop dilly-dallying, tell me who it is. The white-bearded old man had no choice but to quickly check the list of bidders. His gaze swept across everyone's faces and finally, he pointed at Bao Zuoyang, who was hiding in the corner. Holy shit! Bao Zuoyang's face darkened when he saw the white-bearded old man throw a hot potato onto his head. After being betrayed by the white-bearded old man, he instantly became the focus of everyone present. Now, everyone knew that he was the master of the yuan-nourishing demon golden grass. Damn it, if I had known earlier, I would have posted it anonymously. At this moment, Bao Zuoyang felt as if 10,000 alpacas were galloping through his heart. Great. Not only did he fail to trick Lin Yi, but he was also going to lose his life. Oh, so it's you. The corner of Lu Dachang's mouth curled up, harboring malicious intentions. Last time, his son had suffered a setback at the hands of this brat, and he had even caused a huge ruckus because of this. Who would have thought that they would meet again today? Senior Lu. Bao Zuoyang could only bite the bullet and squeeze out an incomparably ugly smile. Since we're acquaintances, then it's easy to talk. Brat Bao, tell me what you want. Do you want Grandpa Lu to feel your pulse? Lu Dachang stared at Bao Zuoyang and sneered. Although Bao Zuoyang was the son of his immediate superior, He didn't care about this kind of bullshit relationship. Baofala had only invited him to be a guest elder because of his strength, not because of a favor. Moreover, there was no such thing as a friendship between them. Instead, there was a slight grudge because of his son. Bao Zuoyang's scalp went numb under his stare, and his smile was even uglier than a cry. If he really let this old bastard feel his pulse, then his pulse would definitely be broken by him. This old bastard definitely didn't have any demeanor of a big shot, and he was very ruthless. Say it, stop dilly-dallying. Are you willing or not? Lu Dachang urged with a displeased expression. When Lenny heard this, he almost burst out laughing. If this was in the secular world, he would think that this was a wedding. Unfortunately, the people in front of him were not a man and a woman who were about to enter the marriage hall, but a red-haired old man and a hedonistic young master. Bao Zuoyang shrunk his head and didn't know how to answer for a moment. He turned to look at Su Kexing for help. But how would a small character like Su Kexing dare to stand out against Lu Dachang? If it was his old man Baofala, then it might be possible. But at this moment, there were only the two of them, and Lu Dachang would definitely eat them up. Fine. In the end, Bao Zuoyang could only grit his teeth and nod. Lu Dachang had just said that he would kill anyone who didn't agree, so how would he dare to say no? Did you hear that? Hurry up and start again, Lu Dachang urged the white-bearded old man, and didn't forget to add in the end, I'll kill anyone who dares to fight with me. Let's see who dares to go against Grandpa Lu. The faces of everyone present all darkened, and they looked at each other. Was this still a fucking auction? This was daylight robbery. Originally, when Lenny took the initiative to withdraw from the competition, the others still had some thoughts of going all out. But Lu Dachang's words immediately made them shrink back. Even someone with a background like Bao Zuoyang could only obediently take a loss, and their background was not as deep as this young master Bao's. 1 million, this grass is mine, Lu Dachang said casually. The white-bearded old man looked around the crowd, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. After waiting for a long time, no one dared to bid, and finally, he could only settle this farce and say, 1 million deal. Lu Dachang laughed proudly, but Bao Zuoyang wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What did it mean to go for wool and come home shorn? What did it mean to lose one's wife and one's soldiers? This was a fucking living portrayal of his current situation. Hee, such a good stock of yuan-raising demon golden grass was auctioned off at the base price. This time he really suffered a big loss. Lenny smiled and glanced at the aggrieved Bao Zuoyang. Yuan-raising demon golden grass was a type of natural treasure, and the rarer it was, the more expensive it was. Normally, there was no clear price, and it could only be seen in large-scale auctions. Every time, the price depended on how many people fought for it, but no matter what, 1 million spirit jade was definitely a loss. In the past, even if the price wasn't raised to 8 million spirit jade, it definitely wouldn't be lower than 2 or 3 million spirit jade. Just like Bao Zuoyang this time, he was forced to close the deal at the base price, and it was basically half sold and half given away. Chapter 48-54. Oh, Lenny couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Although Bao Wuliang was a second-generation cultivator, he didn't take it to heart. After all, with Wang Xinyan's beauty, it would be strange if no one pursued her. Even if Bao Wuliang didn't exist, there would be Zhu Wuliang and Ma Wuliang. Sister Xinyan is right. This Bao Wuliang is not a good person. He often harasses the female students in the academy. I heard that one of them was forced into a corner by him and committed suicide. It's just that his father's background is too powerful, so no one dares to speak up. Huang Xiaotao was also filled with righteous indignation. There's such a thing. No wonder you guys call him Bao Wuliang. You're right. He deserves it. Lenny frowned. If it was just a normal spoiled brat, he wouldn't care. However, he couldn't just ignore a scumbag who had no regard for human life, especially one who had designs on Wang Xinyan. However, this was Morning Star City, and Bao Wuliang was the son of City Lord Bao Farah. Even if Lenny wanted to take care of him, it wouldn't be easy. He needed the right opportunity. Actually, I feel that there's something fishy about today's incident. Bao Wuliang doesn't lack spiritual jades. Even if he doesn't need such a rare treasure, like the yuan-raising demon golden grass, he wouldn't just take it out to auction it, right? Wang Xinyan said thoughtfully. Yes, he even tried to use it to trick Sister Xinyan into becoming his cultivation partner. Although he was chased away on the spot, he wouldn't sell it just like that, right? Huang Xiaotao shook her head. This thing was a fatal temptation to any original soul stage cultivator. With Bao Zuoyang's womanizing personality, even if he lost to Wang Xinyan, he would definitely use it on other female students. How could he be willing to auction it? Was it really for the spiritual jades? The son of the city lord of Morning Star City would actually sell such a treasure for some spiritual jades? Was that even possible? Hearing this, Lin Yi also came to a realization. When he thought about how this guy seemed to be staring at him throughout the entire auction, he suddenly felt that things weren't as simple as they seemed. It would be understandable if he was staring at Wang Xinyan, but if he was staring at him, this was a big problem. Could it be that this fellow was coming for him? The thought flashed through Lin Yi's mind. They didn't know each other, but it wasn't impossible for them to be enemies because of Wang Xinyan, especially with the sudden appearance of Lu Dachang, a mountain opening stage powerhouse. It wouldn't make sense to say that there wasn't something going on behind the scenes. Looks like I really have to pay more attention to this guy in the future. Lin Yi gave Bao Zuoyang a meaningful look. Although it was just a speculation, the more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Moreover, his intuition had always been very accurate. After Lu Dachang's farce, the rest of the auction was much calmer than before. Even if the other bidders didn't lose interest in the least, the absence of Lin Yi's participation and Lu Dachang's absence made it hard for the crowd to keep their spirits up. And Lin Yi didn't bid anymore. It wasn't that there weren't any good things, but they were all treasures and tools that were suitable for original soul stage cultivators. Lin Yi didn't really care about them. To him, if he really wanted to get some support tools, it had to be something that could at least deal with mysterious ascending stage cultivators. He didn't even need to look at the others. So from the beginning to the end, Lin Yi only flapped a pair of ghost-eyed eagle king wings. After that, other than the disturbance caused by the yuan-raising demon golden grass, he just stood there and watched. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were even more straightforward than him. They just stood there and watched the show. This was actually very normal. All their cultivation resources were personally prepared by the divine nun of the Eastern Sea. They didn't need to worry about it at all. Also, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea emphasized on cultivating the mind and self-improvement. Therefore, other than the necessary support tools for breakthroughs, they rarely relied on external items. After the auction ended, Lin Yi didn't go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Instead, he accompanied Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao back to the Morning Star Academy. He was now living in the East Sea Pavilion, and this was personally requested by the divine nun of the Eastern Sea. Of course, he couldn't ask for more. However, before they could walk out of the first floor of the Morning Star Academy, Lu Dachang had already caught up with them. He couldn't wait to hand over the yuan-raising demon golden grass to Lin Yi. After that, he complimented Lin Yi again and again. Only then did he leave with a satisfied smile. This guy is so unreasonable and shameless. He's clearly an opening stage powerhouse, but his every move has the temperament and slyness of a nobody. He's quite an interesting person. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile as he looked at Lu Dachang's back. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao covered their mouths and laughed. Only Lin Yi could deal with this kind of shameless powerhouse with a few words. If it were anyone else, it would be a headache. Bao Wuliang was a living example. The three of them returned to the East Sea Pavilion. After dinner, the two girls followed the godly nun of the East Sea to their evening classes. 2 classes in the morning and 1 in the evening were common practice. Lin Yi also returned to his room, but he didn't cultivate. Instead, he took out the ghost-eyed eagle king's wings that he'd bought during the day. "Senior, why did you ask me to buy this thing?" Lin Yi thought for a long time, but he still couldn't figure it out. He could only ask the ghost-eyed thing for advice. "Hee, aren't your eyes pretty good? Even you can't figure it out." The ghost-eyed thing kept Lin Yi in suspense. "I really can't figure it out. It's useless for refining pills. And it's not even good for forging weapons. It looks like it can only be used as an exhibition item. Lenny shook his head. Exhibition item? Hee hee. The Ghost-Eyed Eagle King is a super-enhanced version of the Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagle. Even the Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagle has a body full of treasures. Do you really think the wings of the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King are useless as an exhibition item? I can only give you 4 words. You're really blind. The ghost-eyed thing didn't hold back at all. That's 4 words. Lenny was speechless. Kid, do you know what kind of existence the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King is? The ghost-eyed thing asked. Could it be the king of the Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagles? Lenny guessed based on the name. After all, the ghost-eyed thing had just said that it was a super-enhanced version of the Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagle. Wrong. The Ghost-Eyed Eagle King isn't just the king of the Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagles. It's the king of all eagles. Eagles have always been the king of birds, so it's not an exaggeration to call it the king of flying spiritual beasts. The ghost-eyed thing explained. So fierce? Then what's the vermilion bird? Lenny couldn't help but be surprised. He always thought that if there was a king of flying spiritual beasts, the vermilion bird would definitely be the winner. Chapter 48:55. There's such a thing. Lenny curled his lips in surprise. Throughout the history of the flying spirit beasts, only the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King is worthy of being the royal family. However, because of the birth of the king of the spirit beasts, the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King didn't choose to surrender immediately, so it suffered a disaster. Although it wasn't completely exterminated in the end, the stronger Ghost-Eyed Eagle Kings were all killed and injured. Only the old and the sick were left. The ghostly thing's tone was a bit sad. What about now? Lenny couldn't help but ask. Now, the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King clan has completely declined. There aren't many pure-blooded Ghost-Eyed Eagle Kings left in the entire Spiritual Beast clan. The Ghost-Eyed Eagle Kings that can be seen now are mostly hybrids between the old weak, sick, and some Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagles. Their strength can't be mentioned in the same breath as the original Ghost-Eyed Eagle Kings that could dominate an area. The ghost creature curled its lips. If that's the case, then wouldn't the value of the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King's wings drop a lot? Lenny couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. Nonsense. If it's a pure-blooded adult Ghost-Eyed Eagle King, its strength would be at least at the Earth opening stage. It might even be stronger. It could even compete for the position of the 4 great elders. Who do you think can get their wings? The ghostly thing was immediately amused by Lin Yi's wild imagination. That strong? Lenny couldn't help but be stunned. If it really was in existence of that level, this pair of wings might not even be bought with 30 million spirit jades, let alone 300,000 spirit jades. But these impure ones are much weaker. No matter what, they are still one of the few royal families in the Spirit Beast clan. At least they used to be royal families, and their numbers are extremely small. To be able to pick this up in this kind of auction, your luck is really indescribable. The ghostly thing couldn't help but sigh. That's because everyone doesn't know. Senior, quickly tell me, what is the use of these wings? Lenny asked impatiently. The introduction just now had completely aroused his curiosity. Since the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King had such a great background, he could really look forward to its use. According to the rules of the spirit beasts, I can't tell a human like you about this, the ghostly thing replied after a brief silence. Why? Lenny was stunned. The reason is very simple. There are only a few royal families in the Spiritual Beast clan. Although they are not like the Spiritual Beast King, who commands all the other spiritual beasts, they still rule over a region. In the words of you humans, they are kings with different surnames. In order to protect them, any information that might harm them is top secret, especially this kind of information that involves their lives. Once the news gets out, I reckon that you human cultivators will start hunting the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King wantonly, the ghostly thing said solemnly. That's true. Lenny deeply agreed with this. Currently, no one knew what the Ghost-Eyed Eagle King's wings were used for. They thought that they could only be used as decorations, so they could not be bothered to specifically hunt and kill them. At most, they would accidentally kill a few. However, once they knew that this thing was very useful, the situation would be very different. Not to mention that the ghost-eyed Eagle King had long since declined. Even when they were at their peak, they could only accept death when faced with endless human experts. Unless they escaped to their base camp in the South Continent and never came out, they would be exterminated at any time. These royal families are the backbone of the various branches of the Spiritual Beast clan. If something happens to them, the Spiritual Beast clan will definitely suffer a great loss. So this is top secret. The ghostly thing paused, then suddenly changed its tone and said, "However, the ghost-eyed Eagle King is at most a fake royal family. Now that all the flying spiritual beasts follow the vermilion bird, it doesn't matter if they are exterminated or not. Who knows, the vermilion bird might even be happy." Lenny was speechless when he heard this. After the ghostly thing had said so much, he thought that it would be very principled to keep the secret. It turned out that in the end, it was still prepared to sell the ghost-eyed Eagle King's clan. Its moral integrity was shattered to the ground. "We advance and retreat together. You can't be considered an outsider, so there's no harm in telling you this as long as you don't spread it around. Otherwise, it will make it seem like I sold the ghost-eyed Eagle King. Who knows, I might feel guilty." The ghostly thing continued. "If you really felt guilty, you wouldn't have said so much." Lenny did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could only say, "My mouth has always been very tight. It's not like you don't know, Senior. Just say it quickly." "Hee, do you want to be a birdman?" The ghostly thing did not answer and asked instead, "Birdman? What do you mean?" Lenny was stunned again. He looked at the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings in his hand before he reacted. "Senior, you can't be thinking of making me carry this thing on my back, right? That style is too flashy, but can it fly?" Thinking of this, Lin Yi's heart was burning. Flying was definitely the dream of all humans, and it was a fantasy that was difficult to reach. Even with Lin Yi's powerful strength in the late nascent soul stage, it could only be a dream. At most, he could use the true energy jet to glide a certain distance. That was not called flying at all. It was simply throwing himself out, nothing more. Of course not. The ghostly thing's answer made Lin Yi's heart cold, but then his eyes lit up. "But it can increase your speed by a lot." "Really?" Lin Yi's spirit was lifted. Ever since he developed the Super Butterfly Micro Step and the Super Extreme Butterfly Micro Step, he was very satisfied with his speed. But last time, he was chased by the Shishan Powerhouse, which suddenly made him feel a sense of crisis. The Shishan Powerhouse was just a mysterious ascension late stage, and he already couldn't get rid of him. If he encountered a powerhouse of the mountain opening stage like the Shishan Old Master, wouldn't he still be crushed to death in minutes? What was the difference from the original? Lin Yi's speed was already fast. If he could be faster, he might even be able to survive under the hands of the powerhouses of the mountain opening stage. That was really a heaven-defying speed. Lin Yi couldn't wait to put on the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings. But when he carried them on his back, there was no effect at all. Instead, his speed was slowed down a lot because of the increased resistance. Wasn't this a trap? The ghostly thing watched with interest for a long time until Lin Yi found out that something was wrong. Finally, it said faintly, "Who told you that this thing is useful to carry on your back? If it was so simple, then wouldn't it be a fart secret if everyone knew about it?" Lin Yi suddenly blushed. Chapter 4856. Ghostly Speed Wings? Isn't that a divine tool for escaping? Lin Yi's eyes lit up. "That's right. I was only able to preserve my life because you ran fast. Last time, a mere West Mountain powerhouse was able to put you in such a difficult position. You're simply too weak." The ghostly thing's tone had already become that of a native of the secular world. "All right," Lin Yi sweated and hurriedly asked. "Then how do I refine the ghostly speed wings?" The ghost-eyed Condor King wing is the main ingredient. The other 6 supplementary ingredients are not easy to find, but with your resources, it shouldn't be too difficult. Only the ghost-eyed cicada wing will require some luck, the ghostly thing said after some thought. Ghostly cicada wing? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He had heard the King of Rags mention it when he was chatting with him in the past. He could not help but ask, "Is it the so-called lightest and thinnest invisible cicada wing in the world?" "That's right. This is the second most important material for the ghostly speed wings. If you can't fuse with its properties, the ghost-eyed eagle king wing will only be a burden. It'll be wishful thinking to increase your speed, the ghostly thing confirmed. Lenny nodded repeatedly and silently committed the 6 materials to memory. He stowed away the ghost-eyed eagle king's wings and began to cultivate. Only when the sun rose did he emerge from his room. As usual, he ate breakfast with the divine nun of the East Sea and the 2 girls before returning to the Hong Merchants Association alone. Vice Chairman, you're back. Honest Chai and Cui Mingshan came to welcome him from afar. After experiencing this revival, the 2 of them were already full of admiration for Lin Yi. They were just short of making him an immortal tablet and worshipping him every day. How is it? How's business these 2 days? Lin Yi asked with a smile. The answer was obvious. The auction was not over yet, and there were still a series of activities to follow. Under such circumstances, the Hong Merchant Association was almost bursting with people. It was even more crowded than the first pavilion of Morningstar City. After experiencing this revival, the Hong Merchant Association had undoubtedly become the #1 merchant association in the hearts of the citizens of Morningstar City. Naturally, business was booming. It's so good that it's hard to imagine. Yesterday's turnover was at least equivalent to the past 5 days. Moreover, the Academy also sent in a large batch of orders. Old Chui and I will be very busy from now on. Honest Chai chuckled. That's a good thing. You 2 go ahead and do what you need to do. Don't worry about me. Lenny nodded his head and took out 2 sheets of paper and passed it to Honest Chai. Find an assistant to take a look and try to gather as many ingredients as possible for me. Of these 2 lists, one was the supplementary materials for refining the vitality cultivating pill, and the other was the 6 materials for the ghostly speed wings that the ghostly thing had told him last night. All right. Honest Chai took the list and looked through it. He didn't let his assistant do it, but personally went to gather the ingredients for Lin Yi. He only had what he had today because of Lin Yi, so serving Lin Yi was his #1 priority. Everything else had to be pushed aside. About half an incense's time later, Honest Chai returned with 2 assistants, each carrying a box. Vice President, the other ingredients have been prepared, except for the ghost cicada wings. Should I go out and ask around? Honest Chai asked carefully. There's no rush. Go do what you need to do, and help me keep an eye on it if there's a chance in the future. Lenny shook his head. This was within his expectations. The ghostly thing had said that the ghost cicada wings weren't easy to find, and Mo Wuji wasn't in a hurry to refine the ghostly speed wings. After all, he could only ask the King of Junk for help when he returned to the Northern Island. He didn't have much confidence in his smithing skills. Oh, that's good. Honest Chai nodded his head. He was currently extremely busy, and if he were to go around asking around for Lin Yi's matter, even if he was willing, he would definitely suffer a great loss. Lin Yi took the box from the assistant's hands and inspected the ingredients. Honest Chai had indeed put in a lot of effort. These were all high-quality ingredients. Even if they weren't the main ingredients, if the supplementary ingredients were too inferior, it would affect both alchemy and smithing, and vice versa. Honest Chai had already turned around and walked out of the room, but after a while, he suddenly turned back and patted his head with a sheepish smile. Vice President, look at my bad memory. I've been so busy that I almost forgot about such an important matter. What is it? Lin Yi was astonished. It's about the letter you wrote to the Northern Island. I received a reply today, Honest Chai said as he took out a big sealed envelope. The inside was bulging, and judging from the bulging shape, other than the letter, there should be something else stuffed inside. Oh, so fast. Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised. Even if he borrowed the transportation company's specialized flying spirit beasts, he thought it would take at least 10 days to half a month to reach the Northern Island. He didn't expect it to be so fast. Only a few days had passed. Actually, this is very normal. The transportation company's tamed flying spirit beasts are existences with extreme speed. They are several times faster than ordinary flying spirit beasts. Furthermore, I've specially marked it as urgent, so this speed is within my expectations. Honest Chai smiled. Another reason was that they were able to get a reply so quickly. In addition to the high efficiency of the transportation company, Han Jingjing replied on the spot after receiving the letter. Otherwise, if she had delayed the reply for a few days, it would have been useless no matter how efficient the transportation company was. After Lin Yi received the envelope, Honest Chai immediately retreated out of the room and closed the door behind him. Lin Yi excitedly opened the envelope. Inside was a small stack of paper, and there was actually something similar to a wireless camera and a probe. However, the components were much more complicated than usual. Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Lin Yi unfolded the letter and discovered that it wasn't only Han Jingjing's reply, but also Shanghai Laner's. He couldn't help but smile. Shangguan Laner was purely here to join in the fun. Although she had written a lot of nonsense, in fact, none of it was important. Moreover, this girl's train of thought was the kind that broke through the sky. She was talking bad about her grandfather in one sentence, and in the next sentence, she was comparing her chest size with Han Jingjing. Fortunately, she was not born in the secular world. Otherwise, with her writing level, she would definitely get a 0. In contrast, Han Jingjing's reply was much more organized. First, she talked about her encounter after arriving at the northern island. Because of Shanghai Laner's existence, she naturally wouldn't encounter any trouble. Moreover, she moved into Hualan residence, so Lin Yi didn't have to worry about her being harassed. Chapter 4857. After introducing the new life in the North Island, Han Jingjing began to answer Lin Yi's question, but she did not answer it directly. In fact, as Lin Yi expected, she could not answer it directly at all. It was difficult for others to answer Qing Danzi's question, except for the legendary profound stage alchemist. However, Han Jingjing was indeed a genius in science. Although she couldn't give a direct answer, she came up with a unique solution. It was the set of wireless cameras and probes that had been sent over. Its full name was Alchemy Artifact Peripherals. In fact, it was a coincidence for Lin Yi. Since the last time she upgraded Lin Yi's magical pesticide cauldron, Han Jingjing had the idea of making an auxiliary peripheral. But at that time she had been with Lin Yi and had no time. After arriving at the North Island, she took the time to make it, and this time it came in handy. Although this alchemy artifact peripherals looked very delicate and complicated, it was actually very simple to use. It could be connected to the tablet computer on the magical pesticide cauldron through Bluetooth, and then a series of idiot-like operations followed. After installing its attached program, it only needed to install the probe on the corresponding alchemy furnace. This alchemy furnace could be either the magical pesticide cauldron or other alchemy furnaces. Then this group of alchemy artifact peripherals could transmit all the alchemy information it monitored to the tablet computer. Through its own program, it could conduct an all-round analysis, so that it could know the defects and causes of failure in the alchemy process. The whole principle was very simple. It was to monitor and analyze, so that it could better assist alchemy. Han Jingjing downplayed the design process in the letter, but Lin Yi was shocked by her again. This was a small matter for Han Jingjing, but for others, it was simply a dream. Of course, in addition to Han Jingjing's genius, being able to make this alchemy artifact peripheral was also largely due to the existence of the Central Chamber of Commerce. Otherwise, if she couldn't get these sophisticated electronic components, no matter how awesome Han Jingjing's idea was, it would be useless. After reading the letter, Lin Yi couldn't help but be overjoyed. After all, Qing Danzi had been delaying for several days without any response. If he continued to delay like this, not to mention whether or not Qing Danzi would have any objections, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to live with himself. In any case, Qing Danzi had already become his apprentice. Although the situation was special, he couldn't lead him astray. After exiting the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi immediately went straight to the Morning Star Academy's Qingdan Pavilion. As expected, Qing Danzi had long been waiting there with his head raised in anticipation. Because he had just entered the academy, he did not dare to rush Lin Yi. Otherwise, he would have rushed over to ask all sorts of questions. Seeing Lin Yi appear, Qing Danzi was suddenly overjoyed. He didn't even bother to put on his shoes and greeted him with a pair of big bare feet. His attitude was respectful as a disciple. Disciple Qing Danzi pays respect to master. To be honest, facing Qing Danzi, Linny still felt a little unreal. He suddenly accepted a 7th grade alchemy master as his apprentice. Who would believe this? However, Qing Danzi was now kneeling respectfully in front of him. No matter how unreal it was still a fact. Linny said directly, "Take me to the alchemy room. Let me see how you do alchemy." "Ah, yes." Qing Danzi's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly led the way to the alchemy room. Generally speaking, when an alchemy master was refining alchemy, they would rarely allow outsiders to be present. Firstly, they were afraid of being disturbed and affected, and secondly, they needed to keep it a secret. However, Qing Danzi obviously did not have this idea in front of Lin Yi. He was eager for Lin Yi to find out what was wrong with him. Speaking of which, this was the first time that Lin Yi had observed a 7th grade alchemy master refining alchemy at such a close distance. Before he helped Qing Danzi find out the problem, the one who really benefited was his cheap master. This kind of close observation was of great benefit to him. Even if he had the divine armament cauldron, enhancing his own alchemy ability was not a bad thing. Before Qing Danzi officially began, Lin Yi stepped forward and inserted the probe into his alchemy furnace. Qing Danzi was confused. As the Academy's chief alchemist, he had never seen such a thing before. However, since Lin Yi didn't say anything, he didn't dare to say anything. After all, every high-grade alchemist had their own unique tricks. In his eyes, Lin Yi's action could be described as unfathomable. He thought that it was a special method of a mysterious great alchemist, but he didn't understand it. When everything was ready, Qing Danzi suddenly froze. After a long time, he scratched his head and said weakly, "Master, what kind of pill are we going to refine?" "Any pill is fine, as long as it's a 7th grade alchemy master." "It's fine as long as it's a 7th grade alchemy master," Lin Yi said indifferently. "Oh, then this disciple will refine a 7th grade Great Recover pill." Qing Danzi immediately took out the corresponding materials from the spirit medicine storage next to him and began to refine the pill in front of Lin Yi. The whole process was very calm, from beginning to end. It was very smooth, giving people the feeling that he was completely at ease. It could be seen that the Academy's chief alchemist was not called for nothing. Qing Danzi really had the strength and confidence to do so. However, at the last moment, when the furnace was about to be opened, a low muffled sound suddenly came from the alchemy furnace. Qing Danzi's face changed. When he opened the alchemy furnace, it was already charred black. This time, the alchemy was a complete failure. "Was it always like this before?" Lin Yi asked with a frown. "Not really. This situation will happen 3 or 4 times out of 10, and the rest of the time is very normal. This disciple can't figure it out no matter how hard he tries." "Master, what did you see?" Qing Danzi said with a bitter face. "If it was a failure every time, then it would be fine. After exploring for a long time, he would eventually be able to find something. But this time, it just didn't work. This was because 6 or 7 out of 10 times would be successful, which meant that there was no problem with the alchemy technique he had mastered. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such a success rate. But what about the remaining 3 or 4 times? If everyone had this problem, then it would be fine. At least it could be understood as a natural and unavoidable mistake in alchemy. But Lin Yi's absolute success rate was right in front of them. If they continued to think that way, then it would be purely deceiving themselves. "I still need to think about this carefully. I'll tell you later." Lin Yi put away the wireless probe and was sent out by Qing Danzi respectfully. However, he didn't go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Instead, he went to the nearby Donghai Pavilion. At this time, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were still doing their morning classes. Lin Yi went straight to his room and turned on the tablet on top of the pesticide cauldron. Qing Danzi's alchemy curve and various real-time parameters quickly appeared in front of him. Chapter 4858. By the way, if there's a comparison, it should be more intuitive. Lin Yi patted his head. It just so happened that he also wanted to refine the vitality enhancement pill, and all the materials were ready, so he did not hesitate to start refining the pill. After the last upgrade, the sacred pesticide cauldron could refine a 7th grade elixir, especially this vitality enhancement pill, which was not difficult to refine among the 7th grade elixirs. 2 hours later, the vitality enhancement pill was fresh out of the cauldron. Linny thought that it would be good if he could refine 5. After all, the Yuan cultivation demon golden grass was estimated to be enough for 5 portions, and this was his first time refining the vitality enhancement pill. However, the final result almost shocked Linny. There were 10 more vitality enhancement pills in the sacred pesticide cauldron, a total of 10, and all of them were of high quality. This wasn't just a 100% success rate. It was a 100% success rate. Fortunately, it was only Linny alone. If Qing Danzi, his disciple, had seen it, his eyes would have probably fallen to the ground, and his worldview and outlook on life would have been completely subverted. However, Linny had long been accustomed to this kind of surprise. After being stunned for a moment, he quickly calmed down. Because of the existence of the sacred pesticide cauldron, plus the Yuan cultivation demon golden grass, and a number of auxiliary materials of high quality, plus good luck. Although the overproduction was unexpected, in fact it was still reasonable. After putting away the 10 vitality enhancement pills, Linny quickly returned his attention to the tablet computer. This surprise was not enough to make him forget about Qing Danzi. After getting the monitoring and analysis results of his refining of the vitality enhancement pill, and comparing them with Qing Danzi, Linny could not help but frown again. Although it came from the same software, the 2 curves and parameters were completely different, and there was no similarity at all. Is it because of the different elixirs? One is the recover pill, and the other is the vitality enhancement pill. The refining process of the 2 is very different. It is a little difficult to find the source of the problem through this comparison. Linny pondered for a moment, and immediately stopped thinking about it. If he wanted a more intuitive and reliable comparison, he could refine a recover pill himself. When the analysis results of Lin Yi's refining recover pill came out, and compared with the analysis results of Qing Danzi, it was really clear at a glance. Both were concocting the 7th rank Great Restore pill, and the curves between the 2 were almost the same. This was expected, but there were still many differences. The most obvious one was the curve of concocting the pill. One was smooth and flawless, and could be called perfect, while the other was full of ups and downs. But that in and of itself didn't explain the problem. Linny had the armament cauldron, and other than the qi transfer, everything else was controlled by a computer. Naturally, the process was perfect. On the other hand, Qing Danzi had to control it all by himself. No matter how experienced he was, he couldn't control it as perfectly as a computer. It wasn't something that could be forced. Qing Danzi always fails in pill concoction. Could this be the reason? Linny pinched his chin, but then overturned his own thoughts. It shouldn't be, although many of the 7th grade alchemists have problems with Qing Danzi, but not all of them are like this. If this is the reason, then it has become the limit that all alchemists can't overcome. Indeed, the human brain was not a computer after all. A computer could almost perfectly control the refining curve, but those alchemists who rely purely on experience could not do it. Even the legendary mysterious rank alchemists. Linny stared at the 2 alchemy curves and various parameters, and after half an hour, he finally saw something. In addition to the difference in smoothness of the 2 curves, there was actually a subtle difference. If it was not very careful, even Linny would not be able to notice it at once. The difference was that Lin Yi's refinement curve was smooth from start to finish, with no gaps in between. Qing Danzi's refinement, on the other hand, was different. It looked like a continuous curve at first glance, but if you looked at it 10 times more, you'd see that there would be a gap in between every few changes in the heat. The gap was extremely small, so small that it could be ignored, but they did exist, especially before every change in the fire temperature without exception. It wasn't hard to understand, actually. Qing Danzi didn't have the cauldron like Linny did, and he had to control everything with his own hands during the process. Every change in the heat involved a series of adjustments, and one wrong step would lead to a series of mistakes. That was why there was a pause in the process. Based on this speculation, Linny compared their respective alchemy parameters, and sure enough, every parameter difference between himself and Qing Danzi appeared after these pauses, sometimes floating up, sometimes floating down. The range was subtle, but it did exist. Strictly speaking, this difference in itself did not necessarily lead to the failure of alchemy, because these parameters were very likely to offset each other after fluctuating up and down. So in the end there was still a great chance of success. But if luck was bad, these subtle differences did not offset each other, but continued to superimpose up or down. To a certain extent, it would really be offline. There was no doubt that this was the root of Qing Danzi's problem. He had mastered enough alchemy skills, but because of this small habit, the final result of the alchemy was left to luck. As long as his luck was not too bad, there would be no problem, but once his luck was bad, all his efforts would be in vain. Linny immediately went to Qing Dan Pavilion, and directly said to Qing Danzi, "I probably know what your problem is." "Really? Master, tell me quickly." Qing Danzi was suddenly surprised and happy. "I noticed that when you were alchemy, you had a not very good little habit, which you may not even have noticed yourself. That is, every time before controlling the fire temperature, you would unconsciously pause to accumulate power. If you can overcome this habit, the whole alchemy process will become more complete and coherent. I believe that whether or not the alchemy will not depend on luck," Linny suggested. "Little habit? Pause to accumulate power?" When Qing Danzi heard this, he could not help but frown and fall into deep thought. Indeed, as Linny said, even he himself did not notice this, because this little habit had gradually developed since he began learning alchemy at the age of 10, almost becoming a natural instinct. He himself was not aware of it at all. "Yes, you should refine the recover pill again, pay attention to it," Linny said. Chapter 4859. His talent in alchemy was far above the average alchemist. As long as Linny gave him a few pointers, he would immediately be enlightened. In Qing Danzi's heart, Linny was already a mystic-level alchemist that could definitely form a complete pill. Now that he had given him a few pointers, his respect for him grew even more. Linny only watched him refine pills once, and he was able to hit the nail on the head. Where else could he find such a brilliant master? Qing Danzi was ecstatic to finally discover his problem. Although this habit was hard to change, as long as he could find the root of the problem, he would be able to find a solution. After thanking Linny again and again, Qing Danzi immediately went into closed-door cultivation. Looking at his crazed expression, it seemed like he would not come out until this problem was solved. Coming out from Qing Dan House, Linny went to the Hong merchant house and asked Honest Chai to find someone to inform Lu Dachang to come and collect the essence cultivating pill. This scoundrel was indeed very concerned about his son's matter, appearing in front of Lin Yi in just half an instance's time. Receiving the essence cultivating pill from Lin Yi's hands, Lu Dachang was instantly overjoyed and said gratefully, "Master Lin's absolute pill is indeed worthy of your reputation. I, little Lu, am really grateful to you." "Don't mention it, Senior Lu is too courteous. Since I received your yuan-raising demon golden grass, I naturally have to give you the essence cultivating pill. It's fair and reasonable." Linny shook his head with a faint smile. "Hee, I, little Lu, know the rules. A mere yuan-raising demon golden grass can be exchanged for a ready-made essence cultivating pill. And it's even of high quality. I'm definitely taking advantage of you." Lu Dachang did not put on any airs in front of Lin Yi. This kind of opening realm alchemist was truly a rare prodigy. "Hee, same to you." Lin Yi's advantage was much greater than his opponent's. Lu Dachang only got one essence cultivating pill, while he had 9 left. "Oh right, Master Lin, are you preparing to become an alchemist?" Lu Dachang suddenly asked. "Yes, that's what I plan to do." Lin Yi was slightly stunned and nodded. There was nothing to deny about this. After all, anyone could guess it. "That's great. Hulu also wants to go on the path of a giant. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble Master Lin to take care of me," Lu Dachang said with a smile. Little Lu. Lainey was stunned again. Yes, Little Lu's son. Isn't he Little Lu? Lu Dachang nodded repeatedly. Lainey was speechless for a while. The thought process of this scoundrel giant was really not something an ordinary person could understand. Seeing the other's face full of anticipation, he could only nod and say, "If there's a chance, I will." Haha, thank you so much. Lu Dachang was once again deeply grateful. A dignified mountain opening stage powerhouse was actually flattering a late nascent soul stage powerhouse. In this world, perhaps only he would do such a thing. What made people speechless was that this fellow still acted as if it was a matter of course. He didn't seem forced at all. After sending Lu Dachang, this scoundrel giant, away, Lainey returned to the East Sea Pavilion of the Morning Star Academy. At this time, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were looking for him everywhere. Where did you go? The two girls saw Lin Yi and immediately greeted him happily. I went to the Hong Chamber of Commerce to help Qing Danzi solve a small problem. Lin Yi smiled and said, Oh right, where are we going to play today? Huang Xiaotao asked. Apart from the morning and evening classes, the three of them would stick together and play everywhere. It had already become the main theme these days. Let's not play today. The three of us have important matters to attend to. Lin Yi smiled and kept them in suspense. He brought the two girls to his room and said, I have already refined the vitality-raising pill. There are a total of 10 pills. I gave one to Lu Dachang, so I still have 9 left. 10. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao exclaimed at the same time. They knew that there were at most 5 portions of the vitality-raising demon golden grass. Even if it was an absolute pill, it would not be so exaggerated. This was double the amount. Hee. I can only say that my luck is not bad this time. Lin Yi smiled unconcernedly. He then said seriously, the path to becoming a magnate in 3 months, all 3 of us will be participating. So these 9 vitality-raising pills are like charcoal in snowy weather. They came at the right time. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other. Lin Yi had already mentioned this at the auction. They believed that Lin Yi had the ability to do this, but they hadn't thought about the difficulty of it. They only knew that it would be heaven-defying. But now that there were 9 vitality-raising pills, the difficulty had dropped a lot. After all, 1 pill could directly increase one's strength by 1 level. I've calculated it. In theory, only 6 essence-nourishing pills are needed to push a master at the early stage of nascent soul to the perfected level. If we include the possibility of resistance, 7 essence-nourishing pills should be enough. After all, these are all high-quality pills. The effect shouldn't be a problem. Lin Yi analyzed to the 2 girls. Yes. The 2 nodded. Lin Yi had the most say in this matter. He was the most experienced alchemist. Even amateurs like Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao had heard of the pill's effects. It was rare for there to be a resistance to the pill, which meant that the effects wouldn't drop all of a sudden, even if it was used continuously. Otherwise, people wouldn't be so obsessed with it. So as long as Xiaotao can condense her nascent soul as soon as possible, she can easily reach full-stage nascent soul with these 7 vitality-raising pills. She just needs to consolidate her strength after that. Lin Yi paused for a moment before turning to Xinyan. As for the other 2 pills, I'll give them to you, Xinyan. You look like you're on the verge of breaking through, aren't you? That's right. If I meditate, I should be able to break through in 10 days. Wang Xinyan nodded. She was now in the middle stage of nascent soul. After breaking through, she would be at the peak of nascent soul, 1 step closer to full-stage nascent soul. That's perfect. After you break through, take these 2 vitality-raising pills, and you'll be able to reach the peak of nascent soul. There's still 3 months left. With your spongy body, you still have a chance of breaking through. Lin Yi couldn't help but be excited. Xingyan hesitated. Actually, Master's already prepared a special training for me, and he's prepared a bunch of resources for me. Even without these pills, I'd still have a chance of breaking through to nascent soul perfection in 3 months. Maybe you should keep it for now. Chapter 4860. Now the divine nun of the Eastern Sea was finally getting serious. Once she forced out the limits of her spongy body, it would be unimaginable. In comparison, it would be more difficult for Lin Yi to reach great perfection in such a short amount of time. After all, he was only at late nascent soul right now. If he did not rely on soul-nourishing pills, he would have to break through 2 levels, which was completely unrealistic. Hee, have you forgotten what we do in the secular world? Lin Yi's lips curled. You mean? Wang Xingyan's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. Her long eyelashes trembled, and only then did she blush slightly. You hold me and cultivate? That's right. Lin Yi nodded. His strength could increase rapidly if he cultivated with Wang Xingyan. Coupled with his already heaven-defying rate of cultivation, breaking through 2 levels in 3 months was not a dream at all. It was completely possible. Oh, all right. Wang Xingyan nodded quietly with a blushing face. She could not help but feel a little eager inside. To be honest, she rather missed the feeling of cultivating with Lin Yi. Unfortunately, she was so far away from Lin Yi that they could only meet in dreams. Now that she finally had the chance to relive it, she obviously would not turn it down. She could not even wait to feel the sweetness of it. If you and I cultivate together, and we have 2 soul-nourishing pills in reserve, we have at least a 90% chance of reaching great perfection in 3 months. Let's just wait for the day when we become giants together. Lin Yi smiled confidently. It was all thanks to Wang Xingyan's presence. If it were anyone else, he wouldn't be so confident. He might even have to think of a way to get a few more qi-fostering pills. When she heard about cultivating together, Huang Xiaotao's eyes could not help but light up. It was just a pity that she did not have a spongy body like Wang Xingyan, and her strength was far too lacking compared to Lin Yi's right now. So she could only think about it. After settling Wang Xingyan down, Lin Yi turned to Huang Xiaotao and said, As for you, let's put the 7 soul-nourishing pills aside for now. I'll help you reach great perfection of golden core first. Oh, Huang Xiaotao responded subconsciously. After a while, her face suddenly turned red and she said, That means I have to take off my clothes. She had experienced this kind of thing once. When she was in the North Island, it was Lin Yi who personally raised her strength to the peak of foundation establishment, and then she could try for the perfect gold elixir. This was the 2nd time, so she was familiar with it. But Huang Xiaotao was still too shy to raise her head. She was just envious that Xingyan could train with Lin Yi, and didn't think that she'd be the one to take off her clothes first. Her face was so red that it looked like it was going to drip blood. If it wasn't for the fact that he had important matters to attend to, Lin Yi would have done the 2 girls right there and then. After all, their expressions and demeanor were too alluring, and even with Lin Yi's self-control, he couldn't handle it. Especially when Huang Xiaotao took off her clothes one by one in front of him, until she was completely naked. Lin Yi almost vomited blood when he saw that. In the end, Lin Yi spent a lot of perseverance to calm his breathing. According to his previous plan, he raised Huang Xiaotao's strength to the peak of gold elixir realm. Directly raising people's strength was still applicable to Lin Yi in the heavenly Dao realm, but he didn't want to reveal it easily, unless it was a special situation. If it was an ordinary follower, even if their strength was temporarily low, Lin Yi wouldn't directly raise their strength. After all, it was easy to become dependent on them. Even if they were in the same realm, if they really fought, they would definitely rely on themselves to break through and become stronger. At most, Lin Yi would provide them with elixirs. Huang Xiaotao and Shanghai Laner were exceptions. Back in the North Island, he raised her strength because the intersect competition was imminent. Not only did he have to face Su Lingchong and company, but he also had to deal with the rules of the duo challenge. Lin Yi needed Huang Xiaotao to quickly attain the perfect gold elixir realm and join forces with him to fight the enemy, so he had no other choice. As for Shanghai Laner, she was purely freeloading experience. It was basically impossible for her to cultivate by herself. It was the same now. The path to becoming a powerhouse was right in front of him. Lin Yi didn't feel at ease leaving Huang Xiaotao alone in the future. Instead of that, he might as well risk it now. At least, they could take care of each other, and there wouldn't be any danger to their lives. As the improvement this time wasn't huge, Lin Yi quickly raised Huang Xiaotao's strength to the limits of the perfected golden core. He didn't stop until she touched the final barrier. The whole process was naturally full of charm and temptation. Fortunately, Lin Yi's willpower was strong enough. Otherwise, he would really fail at the last step, and that would be a joke. What Huang Xiaotao needed to do next was to take the nascent condensation golden elixir. Of course, Lin Yi also prepared a large basin of star ink milk for her. She had a perfect gold elixir realm. Now that she had this opportunity, she naturally wanted to follow in Lin Yi's footsteps and achieve the strongest nascent soul. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan looked at each other and left the room. The crucial step of condensing the nascent soul could only rely on Huang Xiaotao herself. Lin Yi couldn't help much. No matter how heaven-defying his ability was, it was impossible for him to do such a thing for her. It's our turn next, Lin Yi said to the blushing Wang Xinyan. He had already given Huang Xiaotao 7 soul-nurturing pills. As long as she could condense a nascent soul successfully, she could use the pills to advance all the way to the great perfection of nascent soul. Should I tell Master? Wang Xinyan said with a blushing face. Of course. Didn't you say she's prepared special training for you? Lin Yi nodded. He could not avoid the divine nun of the East Sea for this matter. But it was rather awkward for a girl like Wang Xinyan to say it. In order to cultivate with Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan had thrown caution to the wind. She ran to the divine nun of the East Sea and stammered a bunch of things with a blushing face. But she failed to make it clear. Seeing how the divine nun of the East Sea was still confused, Lin Yi could only stand forward helplessly. He cut to the chase and said, Senior, Xinyan wants us to dual cultivate together. Dual cultivate? The divine nun of the East Sea's eyelids immediately twitched. She stared at Wang Xinyan in disbelief, and was left speechless for quite a while. She had known that her 2 precious disciples had an ambiguous relationship with Lin Yi a long time ago, but she had never stopped them as their master. Instead, she seemed to be going with the flow. Otherwise, she would not have let Lin Yi stay in the East Sea Pavilion. He was already being treated like one of them. Chapter 4861. She would rather tear down 10 temples than ruin a marriage. Being together was the pursuit of all infatuated men and women in the world, as well as her best wishes for Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao. But even with that being the case, the divine nun of the East Sea had never thought that Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan had already progressed to such a level. She could not help but shake her head and sigh to herself. Actually, we did that back in the secular world. Wang Xinyan dared not raise her head to look at her master. She lowered her head and poked at her fingers as she whispered like a mosquito, her face bright red. The divine nun of the East Sea was stunned for quite a while before finally accepting reality with a bitter smile. After all, she had been prepared for this a long time ago. She just never thought it would happen so quickly. Of course, she had misunderstood. Wang Xinyan was talking about cultivating together. Clearly, the divine nun of the East Sea had mistaken it for something else. Fair enough. Yen, your spongy body is indeed more suitable for dual cultivation. It's just that you never had the conditions in the past, so it's not convenient for me to say too much. This is good. The divine nun of the East Sea looked at Lin Yi and said gently, treat Yen well in the future. Don't let her down. Don't worry, senior. Lin Yi nodded firmly. Before he knew it, he had already grasped Wang Xinyan's hand. Their fingers intertwined as they looked at each other and smiled. All right, then come with me. With that, the divine nun of the East Sea immediately stood up and led the 2 of them to the door of an underground room. She turned around and said, originally, this was just a special training for Yen alone. Although it's been changed to dual cultivation with the 2 of you now, it won't affect much. It'll only make your cultivation speed faster. The most important thing is to stabilize your minds. Don't advance recklessly because of your greed. You must remember that. Thank you for your guidance, senior. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan looked at each other and nodded. All right. Go in. If anything happens, get Yen to tear open the emergency talisman. I'll come as soon as possible, the divine nun of the East Sea warned. Yes. The 2 of them sucked in a deep breath at the same time, and immediately pushed open the door. Just when they were about to enter the room, the divine nun of the East Sea suddenly asked with some hesitation, Is Xiaotao with you as well? Linny was stunned for a moment, but then he nodded. Although he and Xiaotao weren't dual cultivators, they had already seen each other with sincerity, so there was nothing to deny. You young people should at least observe some ancient etiquette. The divine nun of the East Sea could not help but let out another bitter smile. She glanced at Linny with mixed feelings and drifted away with a sigh. Though it sure is nice to be young. Listening to the divine nun of the Eastern Sea's last words, Linny turned to Wang Xinyan and smiled. I think Senior Donghai is also a person with a story. She must have been very interesting when she was young. Only after experiencing the world of mortals can she see through it. Perhaps we've evoked her memories. I'm not sure about that. Master never mentioned anything before she became a monk. Xinyan stuck her tongue out cutely. She and Lin Yi were the only two left here, and she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The secret underground room was not large, only around 30 square meters in size. It seemed ordinary, without anything special about it. However, as soon as Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan took the first step in, their expressions immediately changed. An incomparably tremendous pressure came from all directions. Every second that he spent in this secret room, his body and Yuan Shun were both going through an arduous double test. There was basically no need for him to deliberately cultivate. Just staying here was already a rare form of tempering. As for the spiritual qi, it was several hundred, or even 1,000 times denser than outside. It was even more exaggerated than in Lin Yi's jade pendant space. It felt so dense that it was almost tangible. Senior Donghai has really gone all out this time. Lin Yi turned around and smiled at Wang Xinyan, only to discover that her expression was extremely unnatural right now. It seemed like she was barely holding it together. If it was just the density of the spiritual qi, then so be it. Most importantly, the pressure was just too startling. At the very least, it was no weaker than the foundation establishment giants that Lin Yi had encountered in the past. Even Lin Yi found it rather difficult, let alone Wang Xinyan, who was only at mid-soul nascent soul. Lin Yi had no idea how the divine nun of the East Sea had done it, but he was certain that not only did it take tremendous amounts of precious resources to create such a formation, but it also required the corresponding tricks and techniques. Only a foundation establishment giant like the divine nun of the East Sea could do something like that. Are you all right? Lin Yi helped Wang Xinyan sit down in a hurry. I'm fine. I can hold on. It's no problem. Wang Xinyan smiled with difficulty. Determination filled her eyes. If she wanted to break through quickly in 3 short months, this was something she had to face. All right then. If there are any problems, tell me as soon as possible. I know you have a tough personality, but if you force yourself too much, it'll be as bad as not doing enough. Do you understand? Lin Yi warned. Apart from allowing her to absorb water like a sponge and increase her strength quickly, the sponge body also possessed the characteristics of a spring. The tighter it was pressed, the higher it would bounce. The divine nun of the East Sea had specially set up such a high-pressure environment precisely to force out Wang Xinyan's potential. Lin Yi obviously would not ruin her good intentions just because of a little heartache. Yeah, there's not much time. Let's begin. Wang Xinyan forced a smile. Apart from the strain on her face, there was also a hint of temptation, which made Lin Yi's heart heat up. He almost turned into a beast. Huang Xiaotao was in closed-door training. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan were also in closed-door training. However, there was someone outside who was constantly thinking about them. It wasn't a friend or family, but Bao Zuoyang, their new nemesis. There hadn't been any conflict, and they hadn't even met formally. But because of Wang Xinyan, he had become a thorn in the side of the young city lord of Morningstar City. The saying that the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind wasn't false at all. Lin Yi and the others hadn't come out for a long time. It was obvious that they were in closed-door training. Bao Zuoyang saw this and hated it. It was because Lin Yi had chosen Donghai Pavilion as the location for his closed-door training that the young city lord could only watch from afar. If it were anywhere else, he would have come knocking on their door with all kinds of schemes. What should we do? We can't go on like this, can we? We can't just let that brat have his fun, can we? Bao Zuoyang was so anxious that his eyes were bloodshot. In comparison, He would rather see Lin Yi and the others fooling around. Although it was disgusting, it wouldn't be too excessive in broad daylight. But now, Lin Yi and his sweetheart, Wang Xingyan, were both hiding in Donghai Pavilion. Who knew what they were doing? If the two of them were to have sex in their closed-door training, Bao Zuoyang wouldn't be able to do anything. Chapter 4862. Bao Zuoyang was unwilling, but what was the use of being unwilling? He wouldn't break into the Donghai Pavilion, even if he had 10 guts. Master Bao, I think you're thinking too much. Su Kexing knew what Bao Zuoyang was worried about, so he comforted him. Lin Yi may be holed up in the Donghai Pavilion, but with the godly nun of the Eastern Sea watching over him, he wouldn't dare do anything to Wang Xingyan. Don't worry. Lin Yi would laugh himself to death if he heard this. He wouldn't do anything to Wang Xingyan, but the godly nun of the Eastern Sea was the one who sent them there herself. Bao Zuoyang, on the other hand, was happy with this. He nodded. You're right, but I'm still not satisfied. How dare he pester my Wang Xingyan every day? I'm going to kill him. Don't worry, Master Bao. He may have escaped from the auction last time, but we still have a chance to deal with him. Su Kexing regained his confidence. What chance? Using someone else to do his dirty work? Even that old bastard Lu Dachang was taken care of with just a few words. I don't think it's easy to borrow someone else's knife. Bao Zuoyang frowned. There's no need to use someone else's knife. We can do it ourselves. Su Kexing smiled mysteriously. Ha! You're crazy. Bao Zuoyang was shocked. With Lin Yi's background, even if he was Bao Farah's son, he wouldn't dare cause trouble in front of him. Hee, of course we can't do anything in Morningstar City. But what if we leave? Su Kexing smiled. What do you mean? Bao Zuoyang asked quickly. I wouldn't be sure before this, but since this Lin guy is trying so hard to get his hands on the spirit-raising demon golden grass, he must be trying to make the spirit-raising pill. Considering his strength as a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, his intentions are clear. This Lin guy definitely wants to become a giant. No matter how powerful his background is, it's only in Morningstar City. Once he becomes a giant, he won't be able to do anything. Su Kexing sneered. Yeah. Bao Zuoyang patted his head excitedly, but soon found that something was wrong. He slapped Su Kexing and scolded. Fuck off. I value you so much that you can come up with such a stupid plan. If they really want to become giants, at least he and Wang Xingyan will be at the peak of the nascent soul realm. We are only two at the peak of the nascent soul realm, and we are not as good as Wang Xingyan. How can we have the final say? Don't tell me you want to go up and get beaten up. Although he and Su Kexing were much stronger than ordinary masters of Yuanying realm, Wang Xingyan was recognized as a super genius in the academy. She was almost invincible in the same realm. Bao Zuoyang still had this self-awareness. Not to mention there was also Lin Yi who was at Yuanying realm. Young Master Bao, you forgot that we still have a divine weapon in our hands. We can't compare to them in other places. But when we reach the path of giants, the power that this divine weapon can exert is simply unimaginable. Not to mention the great perfection of the nascent soul stage. Even the great perfection of the profound ascension stage will be difficult to deal with. Su Kexing laughed. You mean the lightning guiding banner? Bao Zuoyang's eyes suddenly brightened. He excitedly patted Su Kexing's shoulder and said, That's right, I almost forgot about this. The lightning guiding banner is useless in other places, but in the path of a tycoon, it is a true divine tool. Yes, this is a treasure passed down from the ancient blacksmiths. As long as it is in a place where the heavenly thunder is dense, it can easily control the thunder. When the time comes, the path of giants will be the best battlefield for us. No matter how strong Wang Xingyan is, she can only obediently be controlled by you, young Master Bao. It will be even easier to kill Lin Yi, Su Kexing said proudly. Although the chances of triggering a lightning tribulation were much higher in the path of a giant compared to the outside world, it was not certain that they would be able to trigger it every time. To a large extent, it still depended on luck. However, they were different. With the lightning guiding banner in their hands, they could trigger the lightning tribulation at any time. Once they were able to make use of the lightning tribulation, just the thought of the scene was enough to make people shudder. You mean? Bao Zuoyang's eyes lit up. Very simple. When the time comes, we will use the lightning guiding banner to attract all the thunder from the surrounding people to Lin Yi's head, and then we will smash him into pieces. Hee, if there is too much thunder, it will be useless even if he has the Xian Thunder Core. No one can withstand so much thunder at once. Su Kexing laughed coldly. Good plan. We just need to be a little more discreet, and when the time comes, we can kill Lin Yi without anyone knowing, and not even his ashes will be left, and Wang Xingyan won't suspect anything. It's perfect, ha ha ha. Bao Zuoyang laughed proudly. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye, and in the blink of an eye, the incomparable trial of the Path of Giants was right in front of them. All the disciples of the Morning Star Academy, who were preparing to participate, were gathered in the square, and the Dean Ling Yuanqing personally presided over the ceremony, because the prerequisite to participate in the trial of the Path of Giants was to be at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. There were not many people this time, and there were only about 30 people altogether. However, among the crowd, there were 3 people who stood out: Lin Yi, Wang Xingyan, and Huang Xiaotao. One had to know that these people present were already experts at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm, but these 3 people were clearly very far away from the great perfection of the nascent soul realm 3 months ago. So how did they suddenly all become great perfection of the nascent soul realm? Lin Yi was considered normal. He had the vitality pill, so it was not strange for him to advance from the late nascent soul realm to the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. Wang Xingyan could also understand. She could also get the vitality pill from Lin Yi, and it was rumored that she had a heaven-defying innate physique, so it was not strange for her to advance to the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. But what was the situation with Huang Xiaotao? 3 months ago, she was clearly just an expert at the Golden Core stage, but now she had become a great perfection of the nascent soul realm. Had the world gone mad? Everyone thought they were seeing things. Even Ling Yuanqing, a great figure at the mountain establishment stage, was no exception. Even the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, who was Huang Xiaotao's master, was shocked when she saw Huang Xiaotao, who had just come out of seclusion. Only when she learned that Huang Xiaotao had used a total of 7 vitality pills did she finally reluctantly accept the reality. And in the end, she could not help but sigh. This was just too exciting. Women of pill refinement masters were indeed different. Damn it! How did even Huang Xiaotao become a great perfection of the nascent soul realm? Bao Zuoyang was speechless. He had been holding back his desire to kill Lin Yi, but suddenly there was Huang Xiaotao. Didn't that mean that the difficulty had increased? After all, Huang Xiaotao had dual fire and wind spiritual roots, so she was also in existence invincible at the same level. Chapter 4863. Yes, that's right. Let's let them see how Lin Yi dies. Bao Zuoyang smiled coldly. Ling Yuanqing coughed lightly to attract everyone's attention. Then he said in a clear voice, "Dear disciples, the path of the tyrant trial is about to begin. To be able to participate in this trial means that you are already the most outstanding disciples of my Morning Star Academy. But this is far from enough. Are you all very complacent, thinking that you are the best in the academy? Then let me tell you now, you are not even worth a fart." Everyone's expression changed at the same time, unable to hide the anger on their faces. Even if the other party was the dean, his words were too infuriating. According to the convention, the limit of the strength of a Golden Stage Academy disciple was the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. Normally, those who exceeded this level would not continue to stay, unless it was an exception like Lung Rufin. Therefore, it was not a problem to say that everyone present was the strongest disciple of the Morning Star Academy. But if one really thought that way, it would be a bit like a frog in a well. Don't be unconvinced. The East Continent is not like the other Heaven Stage Islands. This is the world of the Magnate Realm experts. Only by stepping into the Profound Ascension stage will you be qualified to touch the barrier of the Magnate Realm. Otherwise, I'll say it again, you are not even worth a fart. Ling Yuanqing looked at everyone and said. This time, everyone was silent. The originally relaxed atmosphere, because of Ling Yuanqing's short words, suddenly became tense, as if a great battle was about to begin. Very good. This is the attitude that my Morning Star Academy disciples should have. Go work hard, strive for a few more profound Ascension Stage disciples this year. When the time comes, I will personally send you to the profound sea region. Ling Yuanqing encouraged. Yes, everyone loudly responded. The process was very short. After everyone's morale was aroused, Ling Yuanqing did not continue to talk nonsense, but directly ordered everyone to board the ship and set off. Everyone's final destination this time was the eastern continent's Golden Sea region, the Moving Thunder Sea region. There was an independent island called the Moving Thunder Plain Island. That was the legendary path of the tyrant. If they wanted to go to the Thunderous Plains Island, they had to take the Academy's treasured ship. Although Lin Yi was not a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, his identity was special. Even Ling Yuanqing and the other big shots took care of him, so it was not a problem for him to get a spot. After 3 days and 3 nights, the treasured ship finally arrived at its destination. At this time, there were already many battleships and treasured ships docked at the Thunderous Plain Islands pier, with the insignia of the East Continent's Huang Stage Academies hanging on them. Lin Yi took a closer look and quickly found the treasured ships of the Morning Pride Academy and the Soaring Cloud Academy. He suddenly became somewhat excited. Ning Xuefei didn't have this possibility, but this time, it was very likely that she would reunite with Hu Yudi, because she was also a peak nascent soul cultivator. In the blink of an eye, a few months had passed, and Lin Yi was still very much looking forward to this unexpected but reasonable reunion. Heroes have a weakness for beauties, and this girl, Hu Yudi, was indeed very attractive. Even Lin Yi, who had many beauties, was no exception. The treasured ship slowly docked, and Lin Yi couldn't wait to get off the ship to look for her. But he was stopped by the Chancellor of the Morning Star Academy. This was an old man with white hair and a youthful face, and he was the leader of the group of disciples from the Morning Star Academy. Master Lin, you can't go down now, Chancellor Chunxing hurriedly advised. He didn't dare to be disrespectful to Lin Yi, not to mention that the 3 big shots of the Academy treated Lin Yi differently. Just the position of the chief alchemist, Qing Danzi, was higher than him. If he offended Lin Yi, he wouldn't be able to live a good life in the future. Huh? Why is this? Lin Yi couldn't help but be surprised. Beside him, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao also looked at each other. This was their first time here, and they didn't know the rules here. This is a written rule. Without the permission of the organizer of the trial, no disciple of any academy is allowed to disembark. They have to stay on the ship and wait for the summons, or they will be disqualified, Chancellor Chunxing explained. Oh, it's actually so strict. Lin Yi frowned, but after thinking about it he understood. After all, the path of a big shot was not an ordinary place. If there were no mandatory restrictions, and the disciples of the various academies were allowed to move freely, the scene would definitely be chaotic. There might even be a large-scale massacre, and the situation would be out of control. Yes, this is a helpless action. There wasn't such a rule a long time ago. In the end, after a chaotic battle, all of the Academy's training disciples were annihilated, including a few highly valued super geniuses. Chancellor Chunxing sighed. It's that serious? It wasn't just Lin Yi. Even the other Morning Star disciples were shocked. Annihilation? This was too exaggerated. It's precisely because of that incident that the Golden Step Academy Alliance has learned from that painful experience. That's why they've strictly regulated the path of the giants. Although they don't forbid competition, if it's a large-scale war between academies, then they must nip it in the bud as soon as possible. Forbidding students from entering Thunderous Plains Island before the trial is one of the measures. It's to prevent enmity from forming before the trial even begins. Chancellor Morningstar explained. Everyone nodded. These genius disciples from the various academies were all proud and arrogant, and it would be strange if there were no conflicts if they were allowed to come into contact with them. If someone with ulterior motives provoked them, it could easily turn into a war between academies, and from then on, it would be out of control. Golden Step Academy Alliance? Is this the official organization of the Eastern Continent Academy? Lenny asked. This was the first time he'd heard of the Golden Step Academy Alliance. After all, he hadn't been in the Eastern Continent for long, and other than his own people like Wang Xinyan, he rarely interacted with outsiders. So he didn't know much about these things. That's right. Other than the president of the Golden Step Academy Alliance, there's also an elder council made up of a number of elders. These elders are the deans of the various Golden Step Academies, and they control the final decisions of all matters in the Golden Step Sea region. They're considered the highest official organization in the Golden Step Sea region. Just like this time, the Path of a Tyrant was personally organized by the Golden Step Academy Alliance. Chancellor Chen Xing explained patiently. The other students already knew about this, but this was the first time Lenny heard about it. It was no wonder that although the deans and the city lord were of the same rank in name, it was obvious that the deans were ranked higher. Chapter 4864. Then who is the current president of the Professional Alliance? Is he also a dean of a certain academy? Lenny continued to ask. The disciples of the other academies also showed expressions of interest, because they only knew about the existence of the alliance, but they didn't know the true face of the number one person in the alliance. That's not it. According to the usual practice, the president of the alliance here is sent by the Academy Alliance in the Xuanjiesi area. He usually doesn't show up, and he has never fought in public, so no one knows his specific strength. Chancellor Chen Xing paused for a moment. Seeing that everyone was curious, he said, but one thing is for sure. The president of the alliance is definitely above the mountain opening stage. He should be a master of the earth opening stage, or even the sea splitting stage. I heard that he will personally take charge of this trial. Everyone can have a good feel of his strength. Earth opening stage, even the sea splitting stage. Everyone was really shocked. Although it was reasonable, as the president of the alliance, he should be higher than the deans of the other academies. Otherwise, how could he convince everyone? But even so, it was still shocking to suddenly hear such a powerful existence. Even Lin Yi, who had seen super existences like the 5-poison flood dragon and the giant electric eel, was no exception. After all, no matter how powerful they were already in the past. The giant electric eel was already dead, and the fate of the 5-poison flood dragon was unknown. Only the legendary president of the alliance was a living existence, and a real human cultivator, and it was very likely that they would see him soon. Only this kind of comparison could really make people excited, because it was impossible for Lin Yi to become the next giant electric eel, or the 5-poison flood dragon. But it was not wishful thinking for him to become a powerful master of the earth opening stage, or even the sea splitting stage like the president of the alliance one day. Okay, everyone is clear about the rules. Before receiving my notice, don't disembark without permission, or you will have to bear the consequences. Chancellor Chen Xing warned them, and then his figure flashed off the treasure ship. He was the leader of the academy, so he had to go to the academy in advance to complete the corresponding procedures for everyone. Lin Yi shook his head in a resigned manner as he looked in the direction of Chenjiao and Soaring Cloud Academy. However, due to the distance between them, and the fact that there were so many battleships and treasured ships between them, he couldn't see what was going on at all. All he could see was the fluttering flag on top of the battleship. The students of the other academies were either taking a breather or meditating. However, at this time, they certainly did not have the mood to meditate and cultivate. Adjusting their mentality was the most important thing. Everyone remained on the deck. Although they could not disembark, they could more or less experience the environment and atmosphere of the thunderous plain island in advance. At this time, Bao Zhuoyang suddenly stood up and called out to everyone. Everyone come here, I have a suggestion. Young Master Bao, do you have any suggestions? Seeing this, everyone gathered around him. After all, this fellow was the son of City Lord Bofara, so everyone had to give him some face. Bao Zhuoyang glanced at everyone and said, everyone has just heard that the competition on the path of a tyrant is very cruel. Even if it isn't as easy as it was before, There will definitely be some friction between the students of different academies. If we don't form a group and fight on our own, I believe I don't need to say much about the result, right? Everyone's expression immediately changed. If the other academies also fought on their own, then it would be fine. However, if they formed a group, then they would definitely be at a disadvantage. The competition within the academies was already very cruel, let alone between the academies. Perhaps the word cruel couldn't even describe it. Young Master Bao, do you mean that we should form a group? Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Everyone was a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, so forming a group wasn't unacceptable. However, the problem was, who would they listen to? It should be known that everyone present was a proud and arrogant person, and many of them had enmity with each other. Everyone disliked each other. If they didn't have a strong backbone, let alone fighting with the other academies, they would already be in a state of internal strife. That's right. In order to advance and retreat together, we must elect a leader here. He will be in charge of leading our Morning Star team, and everyone will listen to the leader's every move. Bao Zuoyang immediately said loudly. At the same time, he deliberately straightened his back and stood in the middle of everyone. His intention was obvious. He had said so much to become the leader. Everyone fell into silence and stared at each other, not saying a word. Although Bao Zuoyang's words were very reasonable, and the Morning Star team did indeed need a temporary leader, it didn't mean that they were willing to give up. Just as Bao Zuoyang said, they would listen to the leader's every move. One could imagine the value of this temporary leader. Once they entered the path of a tyrant, they would unknowingly gain a great advantage. Therefore, even if Bao Zuoyang's background made everyone afraid, it wasn't to the extent that they would bow down to him. No one wanted to give up such a great opportunity. The leader must be able to convince everyone. I think that with young Master Bao's background and strength, he's the most suitable to be the leader of our Morning Star team. Let's see who dares to oppose him. Su Kexing jumped out from the side decisively. Bao Zuoyang couldn't just directly recommend himself. That would be too shameless, so he could only borrow his followers' mouth to say this. As soon as he said this, everyone had a strange expression on their faces. There were probably not many people who were truly convinced, but Bao Zuoyang's background and strength couldn't be underestimated. If they wanted to jump out and oppose him in public, they would have to think it through carefully. However, even if they didn't have the confidence to compete with Bao Zuoyang, it didn't mean that others didn't have the same. There was no lack of people who could surpass Bao Zuoyang. At least Wang Xingyan, one of the three fairies, had the qualifications. In the world of cultivation, the strong were always respected. Although Wang Xingyan hadn't been in the academy for long, her super strength was obvious to all. She was invincible among her peers in the academy's competitions. Now that she was at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm, no one present, including Bao Zuoyang, was her match. In terms of popularity, Wang Xingyan was more popular than Bao Zuoyang. There was no lack of disciples who had a crush on this third fairy. The only one who could nitpick was that she was a woman. This wasn't the feminist society of West Island. In the end, it was still the men who had the final say. Even if it was third fairy Wang Xingyan who came out to command everyone, it would still make people feel a little weird. If word got out, they might be laughed at by other academies. How would they put their faces when that happened? Chapter 4865. Lu Dachang had specifically asked Lin Yi to take care of his son, but Lin Yi had just come out of his closed-door training before they set off. He didn't see him on his own along the way, so he didn't know him. He just had some guesses based on his unique appearance that was exactly the same as Lu Dachang's. Bao Zuoyang? Hey, cover your mother's head. Lu Xiaozhong's words ignited the atmosphere. Everyone was shocked. Probably only this one-track-minded guy would dare to scold Bao Zuoyang to his face like this. Lu Xiaozhong, what did you say? Bao Zuoyang's face suddenly darkened. He stared at Lu Xiaozhong with an unkind expression, and sandwiched him in the middle with Su Kexing. I said cover your mother's head, so what? You want to hear it a third time if you can't hear it clearly? Lu Xiaozhong was not afraid at all in the face of this posture. He had clashed with Bao Zuoyang more than once or twice, so he had long been accustomed to it. Moreover, this time he was simply targeting Bao Zuoyang. "You're courting death." Bao Zuoyang gritted his teeth in anger, and was about to make a move immediately. Seeing this, Su Kexing also blocked Lu Xiaozhong's retreat with an unkind expression. "Really? I'm waiting for you to make a move. It's just the right time to take revenge for what happened last time. Come on." Lu Xiaozhong took a posture fearlessly. "I wasn't afraid of you when I was only at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. Let alone now that I'm at the peak of the nascent soul stage. I'm not afraid of you." Bao Zuoyang choked and looked at Su Kexing. He had no choice but to stop. Only then did he remember that after taking the vitality cultivation pill, Lu Xiaozhong was also at the peak of the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared here. In the past, he could still suppress Lu Xiaozhong by relying on his advantage in level, but now this advantage was gone. Moreover, Lu Xiaozhong fought like a madman. Previously, when he was only at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, he was barely weaker than Bao Zuoyang. Bao Zuoyang needed Su Kexing's help to completely suppress him. Now that he was at the peak of the nascent soul stage, the two of them together might not be able to win. Seeing Lu Xiaozhong suddenly jumping out to disturb the situation, Lin Yi couldn't help but be stunned. Like father like son, was exactly the same as his father Lu Dachang. But come to think of it, this was a good move. Otherwise, Bao Zuoyang would take the captain's seat in the end, if no one came out to fight for it. If that guy wanted to separate him from Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao, it'd be troublesome if he had to go against him. Of course, Lin Yi was not afraid of trouble. A mere Bao Zuoyang was not worthy of his attention. However, the path of a tycoon was, after all, guarded by the higher-ups of the academy. Unless it was absolutely necessary, otherwise, Lin Yi also did not want to rashly make a mess. He came here to attack the profound Ascension realm, not to play with a fool. Lin Yi was laughing to himself when Lu Xiaozhong suddenly changed the topic. Bao Wuliang, who only knows how to pull off women's skirts, wants to be the captain? Stop joking. I think there's only one person here who's truly qualified to be the team leader. And that's Master Lin. Huh. Everyone was stunned, and their gazes instantly focused on Lin Yi. Did I have something to do with this? Lin Yi was still in a daze. He was not a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, but an outsider who came to participate in the trial. He had never thought of leading the team. Bullshit, he's not even from our academy. How can he be our captain? Bao Zuoyang immediately jumped up. Why can't he be? Even Master Qing Danzi is Master Lin's disciple. Since Master Qing Danzi is the chief alchemist of the academy, then Master Lin is naturally a senior of the academy. You can ask everyone here. Ask them if there's anyone who disagrees. Lu Xiaozhong said confidently. Bao Zuoyang was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. This kind of question didn't need to be asked at all. Just by looking at the uniform movement of everyone's necks, it was clear that they were only a little afraid of him, the son of the city lord. But in the face of a freak like Lin Yi, they were completely in awe. The deterrence between the two was on a completely different level. He racked his brains to come up with this suggestion, in order to create an opportunity for himself. Not to let others pick the peaches, especially when the person picking the peaches was Lin Yi, who he wanted to strangle with his own hands. But Lu Xiaozhong suddenly made such a move, and Bao Zuoyang really didn't know how to refute for a moment. Everyone was an expert at the great perfection of the nascent soul stage, and in terms of strength, except for Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao, who were recognized as super geniuses in the academy, they were basically on par. The position of captain could only fall on Lin Yi, who had the greatest background. Bao Zuoyang gave Su Kexing a surreptitious look, signaling him to think of a way to smooth things over. No matter what, they couldn't let Lin Yi take advantage of this situation, or they'd really go for wool and come home shorn. Su Kexing nodded knowingly, his eyes turning slightly as he stood up. All right, we'll support Master Lin as captain. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Bao Zuoyang almost fainted on the spot when he heard that. Su Kexing was his most trusted follower, and he had never made a mistake before. Why did he suddenly betray him? and become a traitor at this critical moment. Bao Zuoyang was about to curse out loud when he saw Su Kexing giving him a look. He suspiciously snuck up behind him, wanting to hear what this kid was going to do. Master Bao, it doesn't matter who the captain is. Let's not cause any unnecessary trouble for now. As long as we can go in together, we'll be able to kill Lin Yi with the lightning-attracting banner. When he's finished, we'll take care of Lu Xiaozhong as well. It'll be a piece of cake. Su Kexing explained quietly. What you said makes sense. Let's do it this way. Bao Zuoyang thought about it and nodded. This was a choice they had no other choice. Although it would be best if they could snatch the captain title, as Su Kexing said, even if they couldn't, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. The most important thing right now was not to separate from Lin Yi, or else it would be useless even if they had the lightning-attracting banner. This was the only way they could proceed according to their plan. Other than that, everything else had to be put aside. Lin Yi frowned slightly when he saw the two of them winking at each other. Although the two of them had carefully used their divine sense to block their voices, Lin Yi's intuition told Lin Yi that there must be a conspiracy between the two of them. They must be up to no good. At the nascent soul stage, although the divine sense couldn't even be considered a beginner, some of the most basic applications were very common, just like the little trick the two of them used to block their voices. Chapter 4866. Rather than alerting the enemy, it was better to pretend that they didn't know anything. As long as they remained vigilant, they'd see what these two were up to. Alright, since you've said so, I have no objections. Let Master Lin be the leader, Bao Zuoyang said immediately. Everyone was in an uproar. This guy clearly wanted to do it himself. But wasn't his attitude changing a little too quickly? But no matter what, the matter regarding the leader was settled. Since Lu Xiaozhong, Bao Zuoyang, and Su Kexing had all unanimously approved of Lin Yi, and Wang Xingyan and Huang Xiaotao were close to Lin Yi, it could be said that all the important people present had expressed their opinions, and the opinions of others didn't matter. In reality, even if the others had opinions, they could only keep it to themselves. From today onwards, Lin Yi was the leader of the Morning Star Squad. For the next 2 days, everyone stayed on the ship peacefully. Lin Yi thought that Bao Zuoyang and Su Kexing would find a chance to cause trouble, but they didn't do anything at all. It was as if they'd accepted the fact that he was the leader. Not only did they not cause trouble, but they were also very respectful to him. What the hell are these two doing? Lin Yi couldn't help but wonder. He wasn't naive enough to think that these two had really accepted their fate. Not causing trouble now could only mean one thing. These two must have a bigger plan in the future, which was why they were so tolerant. Any possible danger had to be nipped in the bud as soon as possible. This was the operating principle of all assassins. It was a pity that Lin Yi couldn't make trouble out of nothing and attack these two rashly. He could only take it one step at a time, be careful, and remain vigilant. 2 days later, the sound of a horn suddenly came from the distance of the pier. Not long after, Chancellor Chen Xing appeared in front of everyone and ordered, "All right, the path of a tycoon is about to begin. Everyone gather and disembark." Yes, everyone was instantly excited, and they immediately followed behind Lin Yi, the leader. They spontaneously lined up in an orderly manner, and their every movement was somewhat disciplined. This situation caused Chancellor Chen Xing to be stunned. All of them were proud and arrogant geniuses. Even a high-ranking official like him could only force them to obey orders. It was almost unimaginable for them to obey the rules like this. After asking in a low voice, Chancellor Chen Xing finally understood the whole story. He couldn't help but give a thumbs up to Lin Yi. If everyone could maintain the same pace in the next trial, then no matter if it was self-protection or breakthrough, they would all benefit. Maybe there would really be a few more profound ascending stage masters in this trial. Under the guidance of the Morning Star Chancellor, Lin Yi brought everyone to the square at the pier, and sat down cross-legged in the area marked with the words Morning Star Academy, quietly waiting for the tyrant's path to begin. Not far ahead was a high platform with a row of seats arranged neatly on it. At this time, many of the higher-ups from the various academies had already taken their seats. Everyone was discussing in private about which of them was the legendary president of the alliance. However, Lin Yi's mind was not on this. From the start, he had been looking for the Morning Pride Academy's team, trying to find Hu Yudi's figure. Unfortunately, in the end, his wish was not fulfilled. There were unexpectedly many people present, especially since there were many tyrants here. Lin Yi did not dare to casually release his divine sense to sweep around. If he angered one of the tyrants, he would be seriously injured with just a slight thought. Moreover, it was the most basic rule of the cultivation world that one could not casually release one's divine sense in public. Since he could not use his divine sense, he could only rely on his naked eyes. However, perhaps because of the hostile relationship between Chen Xing and Chen Jiao, they arranged for them to be extremely far apart from each other. Unless Lin Yi walked to the high platform and chose a good angle, it would be impossible to find someone through the gaps between so many academy disciples. After a while, all the academy disciples were in position, and the higher-ups of the various academies had also taken their seats. At this time, a young man suddenly appeared in the center of the high platform, causing everyone's expression to turn solemn, not daring to speak. Everyone was sizing up this young man, and naturally, Lin Yi was no exception. Although this person looked young, and his body did not release any terrifying aura, everyone knew that there was only one person on the stage at this time, and that was the legendary alliance president. Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other, their faces filled with astonishment. They had thought that the alliance president would be an old man with a sage-like demeanor like Ling Yuanqing, but they did not expect him to have such a young and handsome face. However, this was not too far-fetched. Once a practitioner reached sky rank, they would be able to maintain their appearance forever. As long as they wanted to, they could live for hundreds or thousands of years and maintain their appearance when they reached sky rank. However, it was very common in the world of practitioners that women still looked beautiful and men still looked dignified. Even after reaching sky rank, most male practitioners would not deliberately stop their appearance from aging, and would instead maintain a dignified appearance of a middle-aged or old man. After all, an old monster that was hundreds of years old wanted to keep a young face that looked like a 20-year-old after all. This was something that people did not know what to say. But it was clear that this alliance president was an exception. He was one of those few people. Almost all the disciples on the stage looked at each other, but no one dared to make the slightest sound. The person on the stage was the legendary Earth opening stage, or even sea splitting stage. Even if he did not reveal any of his aura, just this name alone was enough to oppress everyone to the point that they could not breathe. The alliance president slowly swept his gaze across the audience until some of the disciples could not take it anymore. Finally, he slowly opened his mouth and said, "Everyone here are the elites from the various academies, and we are here for one thing, and that is to break through to profound ascension. Although this trial does not prohibit private fights, I hope that you all can distinguish your priorities. Also, you better not have the laughable thought that if you fail this time, there will be a next time. Because based on past experience, if you fail to break through to profound ascension the first time, the second time will be 10 times harder, and the third time will be 100 times harder. Think about it carefully." When everyone heard this, they suddenly felt suffocated. In fact, among all the students present, there were indeed some who came for the second or third time. For example, there was one from the Morning Star Academy this time, and it was a taciturn middle-aged man. Chapter 4867. If the first time didn't work, there would be a second time. If the second time didn't work, there would be a third time. This was indeed the mentality that everyone had, especially those who had the Xian Thunder core. Even if they failed this time, they would still be able to guarantee their lives. This mentality was the most obvious. However, the words of the alliance's leader completely dispelled their fantasies. If they failed the first time, would there still be a chance of success when the second time was 10 times more difficult? Not to say that there was absolutely no chance, but it was absolutely rare. As for whether the words of the alliance's leader were true or not, Just look at the people who had been here before. The first failure had already left a shadow in their hearts. If they tried to attack the Xian Ascension realm again, with such a lifeless look, how much chance of success would they have? 1 in 1,000, or 1 in 10,000? Looking at everyone's nervousness and fear, the Young Alliance's leader on the stage silently smiled. If someone dared to stare at him like Linny did, they would find that his face was filled with disdain and contempt. It was completely like looking at an ant. With his strength, these perfected nascent soul cultivators were indeed insignificant ants in his eyes, especially when these ants didn't even have the resolve to cut off all means of retreat. Apart from disdain and disdain, it was very difficult for him to have a second expression. Disdain was disdain, but as the Alliance's leader, he had to at least finish the rules patiently. After you enter the path of giants, the only thing you need to do is to find a suitable place to go into seclusion. As long as you use all your strength, you will naturally be able to attract the lightning tribulation. As for the lightning tribulation points inside, they have already been marked. The Alliance's leader said lightly, "Lightning tribulation point." Lenny was slightly stunned, but then he understood. Even the path of giants could not attract lightning tribulation at any place. The so-called lightning tribulation point was probably a place that was relatively easy to attract lightning tribulation. From the perspective of the secular world, to put it bluntly, it was a place that was more likely to be struck by lightning. Of course, those lightning tribulation points can't have an effect on all of them. After all, they were marked tens of thousands of years ago, and some of them have already lost their effectiveness. However, each lightning tribulation point has a protective formation. As long as you are in the formation, you can attract the lightning tribulation with peace of mind. You don't need to worry about the outside world taking advantage of the opportunity. The Alliance's leader continued. After all, everyone had a few enemies. After all, it was already very difficult to deal with the lightning tribulation. It was already very difficult to break through the Xian Ascension realm. If they had to be constantly on guard against sneak attacks, it was estimated that not many people would be able to survive. Fortunately, the Alliance's consideration was thorough. However, many people already knew about this. Needless to say, those who had participated in the Path of Giants before, and some who knew the previous batch of students would naturally inquire about these key details. Breaking through the Xian Ascension realm is your top priority. However, it's rare for you to come to the Path of Giants. If you have the leisure, you might as well take a stroll around inside. The treasures inside are famous throughout the entire Eastern continent. However, there are many dangers inside. At the same time, you have to guard against the attacks of the new Xian Ascension realm disciples. Therefore, I advise you to stop before you go too far. If you think it's about time, then hurry up and come out. Greed will only make you die faster. The Alliance's leader said casually. As for those who failed to break through to the Xian Ascension realm, he didn't say anything. Everyone knew that there was no need to care about them, because those who failed to break through to the Xian Ascension realm, even if they barely survived, they would be half dead. These people didn't even have the ability to protect themselves, let alone deal with others. Hearing the words heavenly treasures, the group of students instinctively became excited. Wealth, companionship, method, and location. For cultivators like them, wealth was the most important thing. Of course, this did not only refer to spiritual jades, but also to those heavenly treasures that could not be bought. However, anyone with a little bit of brain knew that if they wanted to search for treasures here, there was a minimum prerequisite, and that was to successfully break through to the Xian Ascension realm. Otherwise, even if they were at their peak, they might not be able to cope with the various dangers inside, especially those Xian Ascension realm masters. Even if you were lucky enough to get something good, it would be useless. As the Alliance's leader said, you would only die faster. One more thing, this trial has a time limit. The maximum time you can stay here is 3 months. Whether you succeed or not, 3 months is definitely a foregone conclusion. No matter how long you delay, it will only be a waste of time. Of course, you can also come out after 3 months, but the battleships and treasure ships of the various academies will not stay and wait for you. At that time, the entire dock will be under martial law. You can either find a way to fly back, or stay here and wait for death. The Alliance's leader glanced at everyone. Everyone looked at each other indifferently. Although it sounded quite serious, it was actually not a big deal to be left here. At worst, they could just cultivate while waiting for the next trial. Who knows? They might even be able to take the opportunity to obtain some heavenly treasures. Of course, this little thought did not escape the eyes of the person on the stage. The Alliance's leader smiled, and the corner of his mouth curved into a mocking smile. If you have any ideas, you can stay. But don't blame me for not reminding you. Thunder Plain Island has a routine thunder burial every year. If you don't want to live long, you can experience it. Thunder burial? Everyone looked at each other in confusion. As the name suggests, it is to bury the entire island with the world-extinguishing thunder. Unless you can escape from the thunder burial like the native creatures. Otherwise, you will not be able to wait until the next trial begins. The Alliance's leader said lightly. Everyone was shocked, and the little bit of luck that they had just had was immediately thrown to the back of their minds. This place was full of danger, and it was really not a place to play tricks. All right, each academy will line up according to the order in which they drew lots. Let's start the teleportation. After saying this, the Alliance's leader disappeared from the high platform without a trace. Since the first thing to do in the trial was to find the Thunder Tribulation Point to break through to the Profound Ascension realm, then it would naturally lead to a situation where everyone would fight for the Thunder Tribulation Point as soon as they entered. No one knew how many Thunder Tribulation Points there were in the path of the giants, but just by looking at the number of people present, it was clear that the possibility of everyone having one or even having extra was really not big. In this way, who would go first and who would go last was a big problem. The academy that entered first would definitely have an advantage. If this problem could not be solved properly, then there was no need to enter the path of the giants. The academy disciples would probably fight here at the dock. Chapter 4868. It all depended on luck. With the unfathomable president of the Alliance personally overseeing things, there was no one present who could cheat under his watch, unless he was the one who cheated. A group of Academy disciples lined up. The Morning Star Academy's luck was not too good, but it was not too bad either. They were in the middle of the pack. The teleportation formation here was different from that of the West Islands trial. The West Islands trial could only teleport one person at a time, while the teleportation formation here could teleport dozens of people at a time. Hence the speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it was Lin Yi's turn. This place was guarded by full-time guards. Chancellor Chen Xing, who was at the side, handed over the name list of the disciples for the guards to check in front of everyone. The others were fine, but one name shocked Lin Yi. Qingyu. Although he was a Morning Star captain, everyone knew that it was a temporary position. Lin Yi did not pay attention to who was in the group, since he did not know them. But what was up with Qingyu? When Lin Yi first arrived at Morning Star Academy, he was concerned about Jiang Hahai, so he asked Wang Xinyan to ask about his fiancée. In the end, he found out that she had been in seclusion recently, so he didn't pay much attention to it. Who would have thought that Qingyu would suddenly appear in the group? But according to Jiang Hahai, shouldn't she still be in the gold core stage in 10 years? Otherwise, why would Jiang Hahai spend so much effort to get her the Gathering Nascent Soul Golden Core? How could she become a peak Yuanying stage master now? Isn't this a bit too big? Or could it be that this Qingyu was not that Qingyu? Lin Yi was secretly surprised, but there were too many people here, so it was not appropriate for him to ask rashly. He could only suppress his curiosity and observe the situation. After all, even if it was really the same person, Jiang Hahai's golden pill of condensing nascent soul was no longer useful. After the teleportation, the scene before them changed abruptly. Everyone who came out from the teleportation array had ugly expressions on their faces. Truth be told, they didn't think it would matter much if they were in the middle. After all, as long as they weren't in the last few batches, they would be able to snatch a lightning tribulation point. Otherwise, the Academy's alliance wouldn't have arranged for so many people to enter. But now, everyone suddenly realized that they had been too naive. How was it not a big deal? Who came first and who came last was the most important. At first glance, this was a vast open space, but just like the terraced fields of the secular world, every position was uneven and uneven. Even though the position of the teleportation array could be considered the highest point, it was still impossible to see the whole thing at a glance. This was not just a problem with the terrain, but more importantly, the visibility was very poor, and there was fog everywhere. The only thing that was not too bad was that the fog here was not like the sea, which did not have much of an impact on divine sense. But the problem was that everyone was not like a freak like Lin Yi. Even the strength of the Yuanying stage master's spiritual awareness was very limited. If they had to rely on their spiritual awareness to explore the road every step of the way, then they wouldn't be able to do anything at all. It was estimated that their primordial spirit would be exhausted and they would die. In this way, everyone could only rely on their memories to navigate the path of giants. Although cultivators had good memories, they should not get lost as long as they walked the path once. But in this place, they could not see clearly what was going on. Once they walked too far, who knew if they would encounter any unexpected danger? The most important thing now was to find the thunder tribulation point to break through to the profound ascension stage. Before becoming a profound ascension expert, everyone did not dare to walk around casually. At this moment, the disciples from the other academies who had teleported in earlier had already started fighting over the lightning tribulation spots nearby. None of them wanted to take unnecessary risks. Since they could find the lightning tribulation spots nearby, they naturally wouldn't want to look for the spots that were far away. Everyone understood this. A group of Morning Star disciples saw the situation and wanted to join the battle, but they were stopped by Lin Yi. Don't worry, there are so many people here. Even if we go and fight, we won't be able to get a few, and it will be a waste of chi. It's better to walk a little further and see if we can find the thunder tribulation point. Even if it is not completely empty, the competition will not be so fierce. He said this with a hidden selfishness. He wanted to walk around and see if he could be lucky enough to meet Huiyuti. Of course, blocking the entrance to fight for the thunder tribulation point was a very stupid behavior. There were only a few thunder tribulation points nearby. With so many people fighting for it, even if they managed to get it, they would be half dead. How could they break through to the profound ascension stage? In fact, it was not only Lin Yi, but some other academy disciples had made the same choice and avoided the crowd long ago to explore. Yes, Master Lin is right. Only a fool would stay here and fight with a group of mad dogs. Let's go to a farther place to look. Bao Zuoyang was the first to jump out in support. Lin Yi could not help but look at him in surprise. Did this guy eat the wrong medicine? With the attitude and character he had shown before, it was already unprecedented for him not to cause trouble, but he actually supported him instead. Little did he know that Bao Zuoyang was simply selfish. He could not wait for Lin Yi to bring his people further away. The more remote the better. That way, he would not have to worry about being seen through. We will listen to Master Lin. Although Lu Xiaozhong was also curious about Bao Zuoyang's reaction, he still agreed. The others also had no objections. Immediately, Lin Yi led the way to explore further away. This process was a little risky, and everyone could not help but feel a little anxious. However, Lin Yi was very calm. After all, with the strength of his divine sense that far surpassed ordinary people, it was enough to clearly perceive the situation in the distance. There was no need to worry at all. Lin Yi walked in the front. Wang Xingyan and Huang Xiaodao followed closely behind, followed by Lu Xiaozhong, and then Bao Zuoyang and Su Kexing. These two followed very closely, afraid that they would lose Lin Yi. However, as they moved forward, Lin Yi discovered something strange. Qin Yu, who was at the back, was strangely close to the two male disciples. The three of them stuck together, and when the people in front were not paying attention, they would occasionally make some very ambiguous movements, thinking that no one would notice. Little did they know that Lin Yi's divine sense was covering the entire area. and no one's movements could escape his senses. This unexpected discovery made Lin Yi surprised and suspicious. Just now, he had already asked Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao in a low voice. There were not many female disciples in the Morning Star Academy, and even if they did not know each other, they had at least heard of their names. There was only one female disciple called Qinyu, which meant that this person was undoubtedly Jiang Hahai's fiancée. Since that was the case, any girl who was engaged, as long as she was a bit more disciplined, would not mess around with other men. However, this scene in front of him was very clear to Lin Yi. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.